Mr. Burnson, Ms. Goldberg, Ms. Misakowski, Mrs. Walters. We have 6 members present. We need 4 for a quorum. We have visiting from our sister city in China, Guangzhou, 30 young people who will perform the Guangzhou Early Youth Children's Art Troupe. And they're going to sing a song for us and do a dance. And Katrina Leong is here to bring them before the council. Could we bring them in here, Katrina, to, yeah, that we, but go ahead and introduce them.
Good morning, President Ferraro and all the City Council members.
Could we have attention, please?
Good morning again. We're very happy to have a group here with us from our sister city, Guangzhou, in China. And there are close to 30 young children from Guangzhou. They're called the Early Youth Children Art Troupe of Guangzhou. Now, this group was formed in the early 80s, and these 7 to 15-year-old artists are from the youth palaces all around the city. And they each earn honors in art competition at the provincial and county level. And they were invited here by us to perform at our 19th annual Chinese New Year dinner just last Sunday. Most of you were not there. Since you did not come to us, we come to you. And that's why they're here this morning. And I would like to also introduce a few individuals. They're responsible for this group, and that is the team leader, Mr. Huang Jingyin. 起来一下. And also the deputy team leader, Mr. Xiao Hanshen. And we also have the director, that's Ms. Li Chunmei. And we also have the deputy art director, that is Lin Zizong. Then we also have Mr. Yuan Yizong. Okay, and I'm going to bring the children all up here so that the council would meet them. So these are the kids, okay? And of course, they will have a few public performances in our city, but then because of the stage limitation here, and we're only going to do 1 song and 1 dance, and 2 songs and 1 dance, I'm sorry. The first song, now, you have to know that all the kids here do not normally speak English, but they try to learn some English songs. And as you will find out later, all the songs they learn are from our movie, The Sound of Music, okay? And later on, of course, music and art is a universal language. So later on, there's no narration, but you could really see what they're going to try to perform in the 3rd dance, okay? So I'm going to have the kids go back to the seats, and the soloist is going to do the first song. Okay, 我们可以回去了。就留下第一个唱第一首的。对对。 Now this Liu Ai-yu, she's 11, okay? And I'm going to tell her in her own limited English what she's going to do for you.
Good morning. On behalf of the staff of Guangzhou Children's at True Path China, I'd like to wish all of you a happy new year, good health and good luck. Thank you. My name is Liu Ai-yu. I will sing a song for you. My favorite things. And we've gone a keating like a potato white wall full of meeting blind people packaging tied up with string. These are a few of my favorite things. Clean clay opponents and crisp apples to do, door bells and sleigh bells and slip so is new do. While guests are fire on the moon on the winds. These are a few of my favorite things. Girls wear dresses with blue satin string. Snowflakes I see on my nose and eyelashing. Silver's I vintage and melting to springs. These are a few of my favorite things. When the door bites, when the bee stings, when I feeling sad, I simply remember my favorite things, and then I don't feel so bad. Just some justice and we've gone a keating like a potato white wall and meeting blind people packaging tied up with string. These are a few of my favorite things. Green clay opponents and crisp apples to do, door bells and sleigh bells and slip so is new do. While guests are fire on the moon on the winds. These are a few of my favorite things. Girls wear dresses with blue satin string. Silver's I say on my nose and eyelashing. Silver's I vintage and melting to spring. These are a few of my favorite things. When the door bites, when the bee stings, when I feeling sad, I simply remember my favorite things, and then I don't feel so bad.
Okay, the next song is going to be a duet. Okay, 你几岁啦？
11.
And it's another 11-year-old boy. Okay, so 你会讲这个吗？Okay.
唱什么？
Okay, the song they're going to perform is called Learning How to Count. Okay, it's all going to be in English. 你叫什么名字？
张俊兴。
And this Zhang Junxing and this lovely Liu Ai-yi again. Okay, give them a hand, please.
My name is Zhang Junxing. kitten went for a walk underneath the tree. They met a little puppy dog. Then there were three. One and one make two. Two and one make three. Two little kids and a puppy dog, happy as can be. Two little kids and a puppy dog, happy as can be.
Isn't it wonderful to wake up to a sunny Wednesday morning? Okay, the next one, I'm going to ask Ms. Liu Haiyi to explain to you what song they're going to, what dance they're going to perform. Let's have the three major characters come up here first. 来三个两个老鼠跟一个猫。
Dance, Mimi and Gigi.
It's a mouse, well, I should say, mice and cat game. Okay, see whether you can figure that out.
Mr. Ferraro for a presentation.
Wong. Members of the council, this is a real treat for us to, for the Quanzhou, our sister city, to come here today and to give this beautiful demonstration of their art, singing and dancing. And I'd like to present on behalf of the City Council a certificate of friendship to Mr. Wong. Would you please come forward? You want to go in the back? Mr. President, you can call the roll.
Alatorre, Bernstein, Jake, Fuhrer, Galanter, Goldberg, Hernandez, Holden, Miskowski, Savornin, Wax, Walters, Farrell, 13 members present, and a quorum, Mr. President.
All right. Next item.
Item number 4 on the regular agenda is commission appointment.
Okay.
Maria Elena Durazo to
right,
the Board of Rec and Parks Commissioners.
Will Ms. Durazo please step forward if you're here? So nice to see you, Ms. Durazo. This is about the 4th time you've been here before, different commissions. Finally, they found one that is perfect. Maria Elena. Yes. Mr. Fuhrer, do you want to say, do you have any comment? On the appointment of Maria Elena Durazo.
Thank you, Mr. President. Maria Elena Durazo has had a distinguished career in this city. It's still a very young career with a great future ahead of it, advocating on behalf of people who have frequently in our city's history not had a voice. That is a very important voice to bring to our Department of Recreation and Parks, which has as one of the fundamental elements of its mission, serving people throughout our city, especially kids, who don't have park space, who don't have programming in their territories. Mr. Rosso and committee made very clear that that is among the key priorities that she will focus on as a commissioner. And because of the passion she brings to all causes that she advocates, but particularly because of that interest, which all of us need to be riveted on, I move unanimous support for her appointment to the Rec and Parks Commission.
Thank you,
Very well
Councilman.
put. Mr. Hernandez.
Mr. President, members of the council, I also rise in support of Mr. Durazo's appointment to this department. I just kind of want to point out something. an area of concern that I had, besides some of the issues Mr. Fuhr talked about, is when I look at the Department of Recreation and Parks, right now it has a tremendous opportunity to involve itself in programs like Welfare to Work and work for Wages, in that it has a lot of projects that it's working on in terms of Proposition K and Proposition A, and how they can involve community-based organizations as well as opportunities, not for temporary employment, but for apprenticeship programs that can be used to basically develop a resume as a job that someone previously had before, and it's an area that I don't think is even in discussion at the commission level. And I just want to point it out to you because I know you're concerned for a living wage and a family wage, and at the same time, you need to understand with Proposition K and Proposition A applications, there are requirements that the department basically deal with community-based organizations and how it is that we can create some job opportunities for people who don't have those opportunities in the past. The department also is focusing more on child care centers as well as senior centers, and how it is that those population bases can help create some long-term opportunities for some of the constituents that I know you represent and I represent. I think is important. And I just want to bring it to your attention because as we're dealing with capital development projects throughout the city, a lot of these projects are city funded, and Recreation and Parks right now, because of Proposition K, has a lot of funding coming to it. Right. And my concern is how we expand opportunities for populations who traditionally weren't given those same opportunities for the city.
Very good. Thank you. Ms. Galanter, followed by Mr. Holden.
I just wanted to say that it will be a pleasure to vote for Ms. Durazo's appointment. As you know, she served the city previously as a member of the Airport Commission. It's getting to be now several years ago. She did a wonderful job there, and I'm sure she will do a wonderful job here, and we are going to be very delighted to have you. Thank you.
Oh, you saw it? Okay. All right, Mr. Holden.
Mr. President, members, I spent about 45 minutes in my office with Ms. Durazo and talked about the problems. No, she came out
It's
clean.
been a thrill.
We talked about the problems as she see them and as they are within the department, and she talked very expertly about how we go about solving those problems. And the thing that impressed me is that at the very end, close of the meeting, Ms. Durazo was saying, "Now I don't have all the answers to the problem because I don't really know all the problems, but I'd like to spend time with you and other members of the council, learning what they are." And working toward a solution for them. And I think that's all you can ask of a person, to be open-minded and be fair. And I did point out the fact that we just have a tremendous need for facilities within the inner city. Talked about the need for soccer fields, baseball, coexistence, basketball, and of course, there's a problem which faces us today, soccer and young girls in the valley. I think that's a situation where some live there, some don't. I don't know, but that's something that you have to really work out. You'll be close to the problem, and certainly you should have a solution at hand over a period of time. No one is going to expect you to do it overnight. So we'll be working with you, be assured. Thank you very much, and I'll vote for you.
Ms. Goldberg.
I just want to echo what everyone has said and just say that I look forward to working with you on dealing with the park poor area that I represent. I know that I'm not alone in that, but it seems to me that that's a big issue, and also the fact that we still allocate recreation director time based on acres. And when you do that, the areas that have the largest parks get the most recreation programs. It's like when we used to, at Old Belmont High School, we used to have the least amount of custodial time because they did it on the basis of the size of the building, not how overcrowded it was. So I hope that we can look at some of those issues about how resources are spread out. It seems to me that park resources in part ought to follow where the children are. Not that only children use them, but they are a primary user. And certainly rec program time ought to look at census and where the children are and try to figure out ways to get those recreation opportunities to children who live in large apartment buildings and have no yards to play in, for example. So I hope that these are issues that resonate with you, and I look forward to working with you in yet another way.
Mr. Alatorre.
Mr. President, members, I'm sorry I didn't have an opportunity of spending 40 minutes with you as Mr. Holden did, but I'm sure it was a very rewarding experience. Let me rise in support of Nate, you know I love you, all right? I just wanted to rise in support of Ms. Durazo. I couldn't think of a greater advocate for the things that I think many of us around this horseshoe have talked about as it relates to parks and recreation than Maria Elena Durazo. In the same tenacious manner that she has advocated for the people that I happen to represent, that happen to be the poorest of the poor in Los Angeles, and many others around this horseshoe also represent the people that keep hotels working, people that keep universities like the University of Southern California in operation, that unfortunately does not recognize the great work that they do, but hopefully in the spirit of reconciliation and the like, as we enter the Lenten season, maybe they're going to realize the importance of doing that on behalf of the workers that they have had. But I think that the voice that I think that Ms. Durazo carries and the knowledge that she carries as a resident of the city of Los Angeles, as a resident of my district, and full well with the child that she has, recognizing the limitations of many parks, that she's going to be able to do a lot as being a voice for them. And I just rise in support of her, a greater person you could never find for a position that finally she has come home to, a position where she can really do a lot of great work on behalf of the children and on behalf of the seniors and on behalf of everybody that uses the parks in Los Angeles. I ask for an aye vote.
Thank you.
Burnson.
Mayor Elena, I just want to say ditto. Everybody's been singing the praises, but I know you're going to do a great job, and I'll be happy to support you.
Hey, but I want to spend 40 minutes.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President, members of the council. I'm going to support this nomination today for a reason that I think is very important for those of us who have been trying to get recreation and parks off the dime on a multitude of projects across the city. I think, without any offense to any of the staff at Recreation and Parks, there are projects in each of our council districts that, for some of us who came aboard in 1993, have been waiting forever to get them done. And I would hope that you, Maria, as a commissioner, would have the same passion to get this department moving in regards to these projects that will probably, for those of us who on July 1st, 1993, walked in with a project and wanted to see it done during our tenure, we will probably walk out on June 30th, 2001 and not see them happen. And why I'm supporting you today is because the passion that I have seen you portray in regards to causes that you believe in and people that you represent, it's that type of passion that I want you as a commissioner to go into the Department of Recreation and Parks and start delivering these services for the people who so sorely need them in some of the most blighted and neglected communities in the city of Los Angeles. And if I can think of a person who could transcend that passion of what they do on a daily basis into action at the Board of Recreation and Parks Commissioners, I would hope that would be you, and I think it is you. And that's why I'm going to vote for you today. And we look forward to you really shaking some things up over at Rec and Parks.
Mrs. Chick.
Well, no, but I am going to end by saying that I'm sure that when our new commissioner comes back after looking at all of these things and tells us that the Department of Recreation and Parks needs more resources, that we will all be a resounding yes vote.
Prepare the roll. Tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Maria, you've been confirmed, and we want to send this forthwith, and the debate is over with, Mr. Alatorre. We got other items on the agenda.
Mr. President?
Thank you very much.
Mr. President, can we take the tax reform item out of order, please? I would so move.
Item number 11?
11, yes.
Is there any objections to taking 11 out of order? Seeing none, the matter is before us.
Could I open, Mr.
Yes, could we have somebody open? And
All right, I will open, and I would ask that Mr. Deaton, Mr. Carey, and Mr. Tuller, if they could step forward, the mayor's office, Ms. LaFranc, Mr. Delgadillo, if they could, I'm going to go. Mr. President and members, as chairman of the Budget and Finance Committee and also the co-chair of the working group for tax equity study, I'm very pleased to present to you the first stage of the work that is needed to put business tax equity and reform on the June 1999 ballot. The business tax equity and reform has been a topic of discussion. We have all heard from businesses, we've heard from consultants, we have heard from others that the taxes are too high and that the system is confusing and that there is not enough compliance here in the city of Los Angeles for many businesses throughout the city. Now we are finally in a position to do something about it. I know that many of you wish that more time would be given to deal with some of these large ideas. But since early January, we have had numerous hearings, deputy briefings to answer questions that anyone had. And there have been a tremendous amount of response on the part of the members of the tax equity group in answering any written questions that have been raised or any questions that were raised during the ad hoc committee hearings. I would like to take this opportunity to deal and to thank several people, to Debbie LaFranc and Rocky Delgadillo from the mayor's office, to Victoria Carrion from the CLA's office, Beverly Burr, our consultant, and my staff for the work that they have done. And also I would like to thank the working group, the CLA, the CAO, the controller, the city clerk, the city attorney, as well as the names that I have mentioned before. But most of all, I want to thank my colleagues on the ad hoc committee that have listened, that have presented constructive ideas, and what we have before us are various options. But the one thing that I wanted to make very clear, that I think that it is important that we move the instructions forward so that we can draft the instructions so that we can qualify this measure so that it can go on the ballot for June of 1999. To this end, also, I would like to start our discussion with what we need to do today, which is obviously instruction to the city attorney and the fact that the deadline is today. And I know that there are been a great deal of concern on the part of many members of the council, and I think that some of these things can be dealt with, but they cannot be dealt with unless we move the instructions forward. I would propose that the working group convene a meeting tomorrow at 8 o'clock, that they crunch the numbers of the various options that we have before us, and that at 9 o'clock that a meeting be held of the working group as well as the ad hoc committee to see in preparation for a meeting that is coming up of the ad hoc committee on the 23rd. I would like us to be able to discuss what rates that should go on the ballot so that we can make the decisions for the city council in a constructive manner. I disagree with some of the working instructions, and I'll get into that, and I think some of those will be discussed. In terms of I, as the co-chair of the working group and the chairman of the ad hoc committee, and principally there's two of them. And I think that the two will be outlined by the mayor's office, because if we're going to have meaningful tax relief and tax reform, let's have it. And we cannot just bring something in without discussions, as we have discussed with the various entities, that the various segments of the business community that we have had discussions with. We may disagree as to the reasons why some got tax breaks, some of them got additions to their taxes, but I think overall there was a scheme to it, there was a reason for it. I would obviously implore the mayor's office if they can discuss that, especially because it seemed that there was a great deal of confusion as to the reasons why some of the rates were set the way they were. But I assure you that there was time, there was reason, and I know at least in one of the proposals, we have not even discussed it, whether it be the gas company, the Edison company, some of the industries in Mr. Zvornich's district that have had exemptions in the past.
We haven't even discussed it in the working draft that dealt with in removing the exemptions that historically have had as a means of trying to improve the trade here in the city of Los Angeles, a means of recognizing that there's franchise agreements that we have here in Los Angeles, and that's why the exemption has taken place. So in that context, I would ask that maybe we begin with the mayor's, the working group, and then I have Mr. Deaton go through the proposals that we have before us. If that is Mr. Chairman, and then I know that Mr. Fuhr has some has a version that he would like to discuss. Ms. Goldberg has version that she would like to discuss. I don't know if we want to do that first, and that's perfectly agreeable with me, or we can hear from them and then have Ms. Goldberg and Mr. Fuhr make their presentation, all right? And then why don't we have them go, and then you'll make the presentation, the A and then B. Mr. Deaton.
Yeah, Mr. President, I'm questioning some of the format that's been proposed at this time. I wanted to speak in regards to a major concern I have, and it's a basic discussion that I think we have to have as a council before we proceed on the immediate work before us. And my question is simply, what's the hurry? Why is it that we're having this discussion before we have clear ramifications as to the proposed budget that's going to come before us for next year, when we're talking about a shortfall?
Okay.
What are the items that have to go on the ballot
Mr.
versus not
Hernandez?
have to go on?
I'll be more than glad to answer that, Mike, but there's
There
a
was a
reason for it.
suggestion to have these people make their presentation, and then Mr. Fuhr and Mr. Goldberg make their presentation.
Right.
And then we can have the discussion about why the hurry.
No, but what I'd like in the presentation for it to be delayed, to basically detail to us as to what are the items that have to go on the ballot and what are the items that don't have to go on the ballot, so that we could have a clear understanding of what actions we have to take to propose to put something on a ballot.
Okay. We have a request to continue 18 and 19 1 week. Mr. Wax, there's no objections. That will be the order. Okay. Who's going to start?
All right, Mr. Deaton.
The mayor's office. Shouldn't the mayor's office?
And then we'll start with it, we'll have response, okay?
Okay.
But I think that everybody should at least have their input, but seriously, I mean, Ron, I
That's
think you
fine.
did a lot of, Victoria, I should say, did a lot of great work on this.
I agree with that. Thank you, Mr. Alatorre. I appreciate your support of my staff. Mr. President, members of the council, what you have before you are a series of instructions to the city attorney's office, and then you have three basic options for how to implement the overall plan. The first set of instructions are essentially to switch the business tax from the essential 4 or 5 categories it has of retail, wholesale, professional services, etc., to an SIC format. SIC is a standard industrial code which classifies, the federal government classifies each business according to a major industry and then down to as low as a 6-digit code, as I recall, for each business in the country. And then tax rates would be attached to each of those particular business SICs. As opposed to whether it's retail or wholesale, it would be wholesale apparel or professional services of a particular type. And the first set of instructions essentially provide for that shift and have no particular large revenue impact. It also provides for in those cases where there are flat taxes or special caps, etc., in the code, that those are increased by CPI and are reviewed by the mayor and council on a periodic basis. Also, going down, B1 is that primary industrial code. Also included in these instructions are the options to provide for secondary SIC. What was proposed by the mayor's office was a primary SIC, so all your business gross receipts would be under the business that you the primary business you do. In other words, if over 50% of your business is one SIC, then all the gross receipts of your business would be taxed at that primary SIC. What is being suggested in B is that if your secondary business is either larger than a $500,000 or $1 million in gross receipts, that would be taxed at the secondary SIC. The basically recommendation of myself and the controller, et cetera, relative to the equity of having two businesses side by side, one paying a different rate than another, just because the one was incorporated with a larger business. Minimum tax would be $75, filing fee of $20, except for business of 0 to 5,000. Startup businesses would be given a minimum tax of $75, and item G would be if a newly established business has less than $200,000 in gross receipts in its first 12 months, it would be exempt from back taxes, et cetera. Again, 2 is the flat rates. B is modification for the motion picture industry. C is increase of the cap on the North Hollywood entertainment zone. D is the annual inflation of flat rates and caps. E is to change the way we tax transportation businesses to go with their primary industrial code. And HMOs would be essentially remain in the same status that they had as a result of the changes the mayor and council made in this last year. Also, item 3 would be prepayment of the film production companies going through and using the Entertainment Industry Development Corporation as a collector of the as new film industries come into the area, use them as the initial collector of the fee. We would also go to fiscal year filing. We allow any business to change their from a calendar year to a fiscal year basis, and we've worked out a mechanism that we minimize the revenue loss as a result of that exercising that option. We're also in 6. Talks about 6A, eliminating the exemption for stevedoring. B is eliminating the exemptions for railroads, steamboats, vessels, and stages that do express business, and gas and electricity, and allow that to be exempted from a portion or all of the business tax by ordinance. We would retain the exemptions for out-of-state sales, religious and charitable institution, and trade shows. And the city attorney would be instructed to delete any unnecessary provisions in the code. Essentially, that is a base ordinance that shifts, as I said before, from the current system of classifications to an SIC form. Then you have options A, B, and C. Options A is the one that was proposed by the mayor and Mr. Alatorre relative to essentially an 8% reduction in most businesses' taxes and a reclassification of certain businesses, a change in their tax rates to a lower rate based on criteria of growth industry, other revenue items that provide a benefit to the city, or those industries that have a beneficial impact on the community as a whole. Option B is using SIC codes again to, but using something in the actually, I think if you have a, I think I'm going to do a wise thing, Mr. Alatorre, and I'm going to let Victoria explain it.
The expert,
Mr. Alatorre, Mr. Deaton, one of the problems is when I'm not in the chair, we screw up. We have a commissioner that we did not approve, and we don't want him to wait all day. So could we have Mr. Kim Hunter stand up and let's improve him, because
actually he told me he wanted his dying a year this. No, just kidding, Kim.
Is there any discussion on this appointment?
It urges unanimous approval.
Second.
Okay.
Second.
All right, prepare the roll. tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
I'm somewhat hurt, Kim, but it's all right.
Mr. Hunter, you've been approved, and we want to thank you, and we'll send that forthwith, and we'll go back to the he is going to be, the composition is 1 male and 6 females, so Kim, you're going to have a lot of fun. Okay, well, where were we, Mr. Deaton?
That's a very good question. Basically, let me go back again. You have the code that those instructions would instruct the city attorney to draft an ordinance that would shift the system to an SIC form and also provide for certain increases in exemptions and flat rates, et cetera. Then there are 3 proposals, A, B, and C, that are being requesting to be in all 3 being have the city attorney instructed to put those in ordinance form, because there's still some issues that remain, very fundamental issues that remain in making the decision on this whole issue. One is how much is going to be the overall tax reduction. And they vary from A and B, from roughly $23 million reduction in taxes to a couple $1 million, I think, in B, and C is in between about halfway. And so there's kind of that's the spectrum in the overall reduction in taxes. Then you have, in the case of A, as I stated before, and I think each of the advocates probably should explain it, but I do believe the council should go ahead and get instructions on all 3. But the mayor's proposal, again, is the 8% reduction across the board for the most part, increases in some taxes, but also reductions in classifications, rates based on growth industries and a series of criteria they'll explain. Councilwoman Goldberg's proposal is essentially mirroring the existing system but using SIC codes in order to do that, with some 13 or 14 different classifications in order to match up what the individual industry currently is paying on a gross receipts basis. And Councilman Fuhr's proposal is essentially to eliminate 2 of the criteria, which I think amounts to several $1 million, $6 or $7 million, that were not as clear as the other 5 proposals, and he can explain that, and but maintain the secondary SICs, et cetera, and also emphasizing the startup industries. Those are, I think, in the terms of looking at this whole tax reform proposal, are kind of the broad spectrum of approaches that could be taken by the council on this subject.
Thank you very much, Ron. Victoria, you coached him well.
So I think, if I might suggest, is that the mayor's office, and then presumptuous enough to Councilwoman Goldberg and Councilman Fuhrer explain the 3 proposals in more detail and better than I could.
Mayor's.
Sure. Rocky Delgadillo, Deputy Mayor. As all of us know, our business taxes are the highest in the region. Some would argue they're the highest in the nation. Indeed, they have a national recognition as a symbol of this city's unbusiness-friendly attitude in the past. Each year, Larry Cosmon in his business tax survey ranks us #1. So we continue to suffer from those images. We have proposed $23 million worth of relief. While we think that is significant, we also believe it is responsible. Even with the relief we have proposed, $23 million worth of relief, we would still be the highest in the region. But it would make us competitive with 3 of the 88 competitor cities that we have in this county: Santa Monica, Culver City, and Beverly Hills. We would still be higher than them, but we would be competitive. We don't even come close to cities like Glendale, which has no business license tax, Calabasas, which has no business license tax, or Westlake, which also has no business license tax. We also know from the study that 66%, or 2/3, of the businesses that leave Los Angeles go across the street to our neighboring and competitive cities. So 2 out of 3 businesses move across the street. From our perspective, The Glendale office market, for example, in many ways has grown up at the expense of downtown Los Angeles, despite the fact that rental rates are higher in Glendale. Also, areas like Warner Center are impacted by cities like Calabasas and Westlake, and we've dealt with a number of those companies with the council members here. The second item is that this proposal, we believe, is comprehensive and fair. We did look at every single industry classification, and we applied our 7 criteria evenly, and at the end of the day, we focused on the little guy, the small business, who has little access to our system, and moved industries like gardeners and childcare providers down to the lowest category. We also propose that our initiative is fiscally balanced, revenue neutral. We have revenue enhancements that total more than the relief we have proposed. And we believe these are conservative estimates and do not include what would grow in the city if we sent a strong message of simplifying our tax code and reducing the rates. We don't even assess whether or not this might increase our opportunities to attract businesses to the city of Los Angeles. I would also point out, in response to Councilmember Hernandez's point early on, this would not take effect until fiscal year 2001, so this year's budget issues would not be at hand when this relief is proposed. And as all of us know, luckily, our budget issues have gotten better and better over time, and hopefully by 2001 we will not have the kinds of problems we have on the budget side. And I also have to point out that, like it or not, businesses focus on the business tax. USC study that was done for the Los Angeles Times and that was prominently featured in their business section a few months back indicates that the major impediment to succeed for small businesses is taxes and government regulation. Just to point out a few examples, Princess Cruise Lines originally desired to move out of Century City because it was too expensive. They considered a spot in West Hills, in Councilman Bernson's district, and Santa Clarita. At the end of the day, both West Hills and Santa Clarita had the exact same rental rates from a real estate standpoint, same economics. But the issue that kicked Princess Cruise Line and its 1,000 employees into Santa Clarita was taxes, the business tax. We are currently working with a Fortune 1000 company that's not in the city of Los Angeles, but looking to move in. The business taxes under our current system for that company would be about $1.2 million a year. Under the new system as proposed by the mayor and Councilman Alatorre, the taxes would be approximately $300,000 a year. They currently pay $180,000 a year in the city they are currently located in. We should also note that with this company that's not in the city of Los Angeles that we do have a chance to attract here, we're not only losing the 1,000 jobs that come with that company, but also we lose the property tax, the utility tax, the sales tax, as well as the business tax. And we estimate that those would be approaching $1 million. So that's other revenues that we do not even factor into, again, this proposal. And I should also point out that that company is in the harbor, or is looking to locate in the harbor area. It's located in the South Bay, but may move as far south as Orange County. And some of its employees are actually live in the valley. When that company moves to Orange County, we may in fact lose some of those jobs as they go further south, because our residents from the valley may not be willing to commute all the way to Orange County. Also, recently, TWA's Reservation Center in Pico Union announced that it will close its shop. And in June, 450 people in the city of Los Angeles will lose their jobs. One of the main reasons that they cited to us in our constant discussions with them to try to keep them here was the business tax. Now, I have to say that we are very proud of the proposal that we have put forth here with Councilman Alatorre. It has been generated actually over a series of years with the Tax Equity Study First Commission in 1996. It has included input from tax professionals, from the city staff, as the councilman pointed out, and from the business community. It is embodied in option A, as the CLA has pointed out, with some exceptions, and I'd like to go through those now. We have 3 that we'd like to point out. we do not agree with the secondary SIC code classification for several reasons. One, it moves us back closer to the existing system, where companies now have to apportion their gross receipts in more than one category, sometimes as many as 9. In addition, we are not certain that this doesn't hurt some of the small businesses here in the city of Los Angeles. It was put in to protect some of the small businesses here in the city of Los Angeles, but we believe that, in fact, it may be used to the advantage of big businesses who have more opportunity and more resources to move their gross receipts around and be creative with their accounting. The second item which we have a disagreement with is the exemptions to be eliminated in item, I believe, 2.6. One for stevedoring, also for railroad, steamboat, vessel, or stage. Both of those, we believe, were put in effect to allow us to compete with Long Beach, which does not tax those activities now. And this would put us at a competitive disadvantage to our neighboring port, which we compete with, as you know, vigorously every day. The gas and electricity elimination of exemption is also problematic. This council should know that both of those industries, although electricity is not currently handled this way because we have a sole provider in the Department of Water and Power, but both of them would be subject to a franchise fee, and that's what the gas company now pays. And it is much larger than the business tax, significantly larger, I think on the order of 40 times larger than the business tax that would be proposed, even if the gas company was put into the highest category under our current system. And we believe that that franchise fee does encompass the fee that the gas company would pay for the services that the city provides from a business perspective. The last objection we have is relative to one of the revenue enhancements that has been proposed with the working committee, whereby it was titled a revenue shortfall provision, whereby if we are not able to make up the difference with the revenue enhancements of what we give in tax relief, that in fact this council would be allowed to go forward and make up that difference to close the gap. Our concern is that in the revenue shortfall provision, we prefer option number 2, which counts in the combination one of our revenue enhancements that we propose, the net gain from the use tax rebate. We also would suggest that the council not be allowed to give have no limits on the increase in taxes they might impose to fill the gap. And we suggest that that should be more limited or capped at 8%. In addition, the last sentence of the revenue shortfall provisions does say that there shall not be a time limit for the council mayor to act in accordance with this section. In other words, it gives the council and the mayor free hand to raise taxes at any time in the future, and we do believe that there should be a definite date where this should be cut off so that the council can make up the difference if there is any, which we believe there will be none, but if there is any, at the date immediately following when this proposal is put into place, and that would be fiscal year 2003. I will say that option A also does take into consideration the concerns that have been raised by council members at committee and individually with conversations with council members. We also are going to present additional improvements tomorrow at the working group and at the deputy briefing, and that the significant relief will be mitigated to the extent we can under the current proposal. Again, I will reiterate that we do think option A is an important and valuable tool for the city of Los Angeles to move us forward into the 21st century, and we stand ready to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Mr. Alatorre? Before we proceed, I'm going to make the following motion because I really believe
Mr. Fuhrer has a motion that would allow his to be considered. I believe, as Mr. Deaton pointed out, that at least I think that all three should be sent to the city attorney for instructions, with a proviso on A, that we repeal repeal the previously untaxed industries, as was, you wanted to eliminate those things. I want to put them back in, that they are allowed the exemption. And secondly, allowing the open-endedness timeframe, which was included inadvertently, I know, by the CLA in terms of option A. I did not want to allow that open-endedness of the taxes, the revenue, on the revenue shortfall.
Mr. Let me ask the city attorney first. If we adopt your recommendation, which is in essence to have the city attorney prepare all of them and have them come back, can they be mixed and matched in essence? When they come back, will they be all in a form so that the council could choose whichever ones they want and don't want of each of the packages? Can they come back in a form that in essence we can mix and match?
Which one?
A city attorney.
No, I don't want that.
I think the city attorney is the one that's going to have to answer that question.
Ron.
Yeah, and
if we do, it's going to make it a lot smoother to have a procedure.
that's why I think it's important that we have all three of them.
Mr. City Attorney, if you're given the direction given by Mr. Alatorre, can you come back in a form that in essence would permit the council, after it further studies all of the proposals and all, to in essence mix and match some of them to come up with a total package?
We believe that can be done,
Good.
yes.
All right,
Okay,
and
then
also, and also, on the secondary SICs, I wanted also that removed on A.
Well, but if it's mix and match, someone could add it back too. I mean, the whole point of this is to bring it all back.
But I
And
want
then
to
we'll
take it out.
Okay.
Thank you.
I
want to move A, B, and C.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Mine.
With this, irrespective of the order on here, I think Mr. Fuhrer and Ms. Goldberg should be the first to speak.
should
So
be first,
let
and
me
then Mr. Fuhrer.
recognize Ms. Goldberg, and then Mr. Fuhrer, and then after that, Mr. Burnson and Mr. Savornich.
Mr. Chairman, members, colleagues, I won't ask for the same 11 minutes the mayor's office just took, but I may need a little bit more than 3 minutes to explain mine, so I'd ask your indulgence. First of all, you should have a sheet of paper that says option A, B, and C on both sides. This was not prepared by my office, but it was prepared by the CLA's office. Is that correct, Ms. Carrion? And so I'd like to make sure everybody has one of those, because I think it helps at least to distinguish where they are alike and where they are different, and in many cases, there are some significant similarities as well as significant differences. Secondly, to make things even more exciting, even though my proposal is substitute option B in the middle, in the paper in front of you, it's 11D, as in David. So that's going to make it a lot more exciting, because Mr. Fuhrer's, which is option C, is really 11A. So I hope we can all do that. I don't know. What can I tell you? Also, even to make matters worse, I have a couple of amendments to my own 11D. And the first amendment is that as to startup businesses, and if you're looking at the chart, we left off inadvertently a change that would make it identical to both A and C. No, actually, it's identical to, which one is it, 200,000? To A, to A. And that adds $559,000 to the total, which would make where it says total loss on B, substitute B, that makes it $4.6 million instead of $4.1 million. So that's my first one. The second one is, second amendment I'd like to make to my own is that we had talked about amnesties being a bad idea with the controller more than every 10 years. And so this would add also that there would be no more tax amnesties except for at least with a 10-year period in the in-between. And I'd like to ask that both of those be added to mine. Now, what is different about mine versus A and C? Well, starting from the beginning, We both all three use a move to a primary industry code system. However, the proposal B that I'm supporting and urging on you has the least disruption to the average tax rate paid by each industry and the smallest overall revenue impact. And it calls for a business will pay a secondary industry code. We consider that an equity phase for at least $500,000 to $1 million in gross receipts. Number of rates is different. We start lower at $1.18 instead of $1.20, but we retain the $5.50 and the $5.91 above the mayor's proposal. I asked the consultants what was magic about 8 versus 14. That's not only the CLA's office, but Beverly and her group, and they said there's really nothing magic about it. Filing tax, we have no provisions for that. On minimum tax, we have a $100 minimum tax to be paid on businesses, depending on the receipts. Now, that's the 75 plus the filing fee of 25. A startup business, ours is the same now as the tax provision A. Small business, we have no provision because we think the minimum tax takes care of it. And I want you to pay real attention to the next category, winners and losers. We have the highest number of winners, 76%, and the lowest number of losers, 24%. The same amount of businesses that have the larger tax increases, about 7%. That's the same as the mayor's, and it's slightly less than C, which is 7.5%. The average tax change per business is a difference between $92 reduced to $20 reduced to $50, almost $3 reduced. And you can look for yourself as to the differences in which industries get the most and the best out of it. The tax loss is $4.6 million. Now, why is this proposal before you? Well, let me first say that I have some difficulty, and I've passed out a letter, which I hope you've all received now, about the problems I have with all of what we are doing. And that is to say that I think that before we came up with what we have before us, either A, B, or C, it would have been helpful for the mayor and the council to jointly engage in a conversation about 3 things. First, what the goals are for the program. Second, what the criteria are for who we're targeting. And thirdly, how much we were willing to see revenue decreased at the base level. If we had made joint decisions about those 3 big questions, we could have done meaningful tax reform. I do not believe, frankly, any of the 3 proposals, including my own, is meaningful tax reform. And here's why. Because basically, all it does is simplify the system, a goal worthy of doing, and that's why I put in a proposal. But much more important would have been to target businesses where incentives will make a difference and give them a large enough tax break to really influence their decision making. None of these 3 proposals does that, not one of them. So what we're doing is, in my view, very feel-good kind of legislation. Of course it makes us all happy to reduce taxes on business. That's a wonderful thing. I like doing it as well. But if you do not target it, then it has no actual impact. If it has no actual impact, then you have spent money without getting something in return. I think the mayor's proposals give too little break to those industries that are sensitive to decision making. And I think that it should have been much higher, but I think if you had spent about $5 or $10 million and specifically targeted critical industries, you would have ended up with much better. Let me just talk a couple more seconds about criteria. I had requested from the mayor's office and got last night or this morning some responses as to what a growth industry is. And they really have only 2 growth industries, multimedia and biomedical. Yet, the construction industry in Los Angeles is a growth industry, as is wholesale trade. I think it will be difficult for us to explain why they were not included. The second criteria, the industry has a job base critical to the city's economic health. Well, 3 large groups of job bases were left out completely. Wholesale non-durable employs 48,000 people, but is getting an 11% tax increase under the mayor's proposal. Eating and drinking establishments employ 83,000 people and are getting a 2% tax increase. Apparel and accessory stores employ 16,000 people and are getting a 6% tax increase. So then secondarily, they said, well, it had high self-employment rates. Well, I think really basically this category is high self-employment rates. And if they had said that in the first place, I think we might have been more clear. Thirdly, the industry critical to generating other types of city revenues. Now, this is an important category, but big sales tax comes from general merchandise. It's about 8% of the total sales tax that we get. That group is getting a 4% tax increase under the mayor's proposal. Eating and drinking establishments represent 13% of the sales tax to the city each year. They are getting an increase of 2%. And on and on. Basically, what I'm saying is that I think that we have lost a tremendous opportunity to really look at the important issues of tax reform, which are dealing with tax inequities where they exist and dealing with targeting tax breaks so that it has a result in terms of decision-making, either to stay in Los Angeles or to move into Los Angeles. And I don't think that we've done that in any of them.
I gave you 8.5 minutes. Mr. Fuhr.
But, John, I talk so fast that we'll see if I can do it. First, I want to applaud the effort to be focusing on tax reform. I think it's a good thing. And I think I want to recognize that Mr. Delgadillo and Ms. LaFranchi have really worked incredibly hard on this, in addition to the city staff we mentioned before, who have been marvelous as well. I want to just reiterate support for Mr. Alatorre's motion, which just preserves the council's options. Today is not a decision-making day. Today's a day to get issues on the table. There'll be a decision-making time soon. If we preclude anything from moving forward, we have narrowed our options. We should not be narrowing our options. Let me present why I support the option that is called C. That, as Ms. Goldberg said, is 11A, but never mind that. Call it option C. I support it, and I proposed it, because I think it does something very real for a particularly important category of business in the city, and that is startup businesses. There were roughly 22,000 startup businesses in the last analysis that was done, and the proposal that I have before us would exempt up to $500,000 of first-year gross receipts from being taxed. That is a meaningful, tangible incentive to start up a business in Los Angeles. And by looking at that crucial first year when there is so much risk involved, we diminish that risk substantially. And if you're an entrepreneur, risk is everything. We diminish it and make it meaningful, I think. I support option C because it provides broad-based relief in the sense that, as with the mayor's proposal, about 2/3 of businesses are winners out of the whole mix. I support option C because, by coincidence, it turns out, I didn't set about trying to do this, but the hit on the general fund is precisely between the mayor's proposal and Ms. Goldberg's proposal. We achieve something real while at the same time having a moderate impact on the general fund, which, if the mayor's assessments of revenue enhancements are even halfway accurate, those revenue enhancements will counterbalance the general fund hit from option C. We can always lower taxes later on, and option C enables us to move forward on lowering taxes for most businesses, while enabling us down the road to continue to do so if we deem that appropriate, if revenues come in as we expect and other factors are true. Ms. Goldberg and the mayor's office at either ends of the spectrum here have made good points. There are lots to agree with what both presentations have had to offer. I want to differ with respect with one thing that Ms. Goldberg said, and that's with reference to the notion that either of these, any of these options are sort of feel good. I think that we should at least recognize, first, that in option C there is something very real, particularly in that startup category, and secondly, to note that symbolism in this context does matter. It is not irrelevant here. And the reason I support an option that provides broad-based tax relief and would bump down every business in the first 5 categories the Mayor proposes down 1 tax rate, broad relief, is I think that that is an important signal to send to business, and to stave off that day, I think sends a very negative message. Now, let me go through the specific elements of option C, which in many respects has turned out to be very much a middle ground between the other 2 proposals. As I tried to emphasize, a $500,000 tax exemption for startup businesses. Big difference in the city. Second, reduce by that 1 rate the 2/3 of businesses that would be winners. And those winners are essentially those encompassed within the first 5 categories that the mayor put together. Categories like they're a big employer for the city, or they're a growth industry. But by only reducing their taxes by 1 rate, we limit the relevance of that decision-making process as to which businesses fell 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. It matters, but it only matters to some degree because it distinguishes, broadly speaking, those businesses that would benefit the city from those which have a rather minor benefit to the city. Option C reduces the top category that taxpayers pay. It reduces it by 41 cents over the current situation. Option A reduces it by 51 cents. That dime matters because that reduction, that change right there, pays for the complete startup exemption. It balances out almost precisely. Option C also discusses aggressive tax collection. I want to talk about that for a second. We can all agree that one of the major deficiencies in our business tax structure has been our failure to capture the taxes owed by about 1/3 of the businesses. One way to capture those taxes is to simplify the business tax. And each of the proposals, options A, B, and C, all emphasize tax simplification. If it's easier to comply and there's less cost to compliance, it's more likely businesses will comply, and that's a good thing. But we have to be focusing on how to get money, particularly that owed by out-of-city businesses, as well as those in-city. And option C talks about how we can do that in a very specific way. So, in sum, we should be doing tax reform now. We should be simplifying our tax structure. There is broad consensus, and we can do that now. And option C is, in essence, pretty much option A when it comes to simplifying taxes, and that's a good thing to do. We also have an opportunity to invigorate our local business climate by saying, especially to startup businesses, come to our city. We shouldn't miss that opportunity, and option C is the one proposal that aggressively goes after those startups.
Thank you.
And let me just say to conclude, option C enables us to get broad-based relief, but at a hit on the general fund that is literally between options A and C and will be counterbalanced by the revenue enhancements proposed.
Okay. Now we're going to go back to our 3 minutes. Because
Could I make this recommendation, Mr.
What is your recommendation?
I believe that there are people that want to be heard. I would like to, and I realize that we have quite a few things that we have to deal with today. I would like to have a 10-minute public hearing and then come back and have...
Did they have an opportunity to speak at the committee?
They have spoken in the committee, but then I'm sure that there are people that maybe have or have not. So it's up to the members, Mr. Farrar.
All right. Is there any objections to a 10-minute public hearing?
You're going to be next.
I could just like to call attention to people that there is an 11C that affects all of the proposals, at least as I'm proposing it, so that maybe the comment would want to comment on that as well, which changes 2 things, and I'm just going to briefly, because people can read it themselves. One is it changes how we deal with the film industry slightly, and these are suggestions that came from EIDC, and the second item is down at the bottom, which deletes from A, B, and C the gas companies only. Now, obviously, that's not all of them, so there's still differences, but mine does not any longer include a taxing the gas company. I was obviously persuaded by the hearing in committee, and it was just omitted inadvertently. So I just wanted to point that out so that if people wanted to speak about it, they could speak about all of the pieces on the table. Thank you.
Okay, we'll have Rebecca Barrancas.
Barantes.
Rebecca
I don't mess around.
John Tumpak would be next.
Good morning. My name is Rebecca Barrantes, and I'm representing the Latin Business Association, who heartily supports broad-based tax relief as well as simplification, and I really applaud the efforts of the Mayor's Office and Councilman Fuhrer. I just received and met with your office yesterday, and we're very interested in looking at what you have to offer, especially with the startup businesses. We sincerely appreciate that, since one out of every 2 startup businesses is a Latino-owned business. And we have over 78,000 Latino-owned businesses in the city of Los Angeles who are going to be the overall winners in this proposal. So we stand to realize an average of 12 to 42% in tax relief every year. And so I think it's more than symbolic. It really is meaningful, and we need to be looking at ways to make it meaningful to be doing business in the city of LA. But more importantly, I want to speak to the point of the option that we support. Right now, we are supporting option A with amendments. We would like to see a deletion of the secondary SIC code, because we don't believe that promotes relief or simplification. And secondly, we really need to have some language in there that poses some limitations and some reasonable targets for setting tax increases within a certain time frame and with a certain amount of increase. I think we put a lot of time and effort into this now, and I think it would be terrible to undo it sort of arbitrarily and in a capricious manner. We need to really think about the type of language that brings about a balance of goals and objectives here, relief as well as dealing with anticipated or realized shortfalls. So with that, again, I applaud the efforts of the council and the mayor to really help out small businesses and startups. We are the economic engine and the economic model of the new millennium. Thank you very much.
Okay, John Tumpak, and then Carol Schatz.
Good morning. My name is John Tumpak. I'm Director of Public Affairs for the Small Business Administration, Los Angeles District Office, largest district office in the country, and for the last 3 years, the top lending office in small business loans throughout the United States. A personal comment: the debate today was tremendous to see. We all know Los Angeles does have somewhat of a negative perception nationally, is not a friendly and good place to be doing business, and I think today's debate by all parties in question was very positive to see. It's good to see that going on. From our view at the SBA, we strongly and acutely are aware of the impact that high taxes do have on business survival. We strongly support the mayor's proposal for tax relief. We feel it is a fair proposal, and of course tax relief does mean job creation and job retention. It's time to move on. We feel that it's a fair proposal, a good proposal, and the Small Business Administration does support the mayor's proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Carol Schatz, followed by Mr. Mike Banner.
Carol Schatz, President of Central City Association. We have companies, 250 companies, that provide over 250,000 jobs throughout the Los Angeles County area. We are here to strongly support this tax reform and tax relief proposal. We want to remind the council that the business license tax in Los Angeles is the highest tax in the state of California. Local taxes, local business taxes do make a difference. When companies are thinking about locating, when they're thinking about expanding, it is an important factor that this council and this city needs to be concerned about as it moves forward and tries to grow this economy. It is also very important to us that the council considers that tax relief really must be broad-based. to be meaningful for the businesses in the city of Los Angeles. Yes, we all want to encourage small startup businesses. That is where our economy is moving. All of us who represent big businesses and small businesses understand this. But it is also important for this council to recognize that even under the mayor's proposal, we are still going to have business license tax rates higher than just about anywhere else in the region. And I've said this before, you heard the statistic from the deputy mayor, but it is an important statistic that I hope you will all consider carefully, that when you look at the businesses that have moved recently out of the city of Los Angeles, 66% of them have moved to outlying areas in the county. Not to Las Vegas, not to Salt Lake, but to within the county. And that should tell you what the perception still is about this city and its ability to do business. We therefore support the mayor's proposal. We want to look much more carefully at Councilman Feuer's proposal. We believe his efforts to help startup businesses are certainly in the right direction, but we haven't had a chance to thoroughly review that yet. We ask that you recognize when you're looking at the shortfall and the issues about meeting revenue with the possible reduction in rates, that you will bring businesses in if you send this message loud and clear. We have the same very specific concerns about the proposal that you have heard, the secondary SIC codes, the unlimited time the council is given to raise the rate if there's only $1 million shortfall. We are very concerned about our members in the utilities, where an effort is being made now without any great thought about eliminating the exemption for them. We would ask you to please consider the overwhelming response you will get from this proposal that will increase your tax base ultimately. Keep it broad-based, keep it simple, listen to your business community, because we care about this city, and I hope you care about us as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schatz. Mike Banner, followed by Tom McCarty. Mr. Banner here. Go ahead, sir.
Good morning. My name is Tom McCarty. I am co-chair of the Land Use Committee for the Valley Industry and Commerce Association, wanting to simply echo a lot of the comments that you've heard from the business community. Specifically, we applaud the efforts to reform taxes, and we would strongly encourage you to continue your efforts to establish public-private sector committees to review and evaluate the taxes and their impact on the business community, especially small business. We want you also to act today on some of these items to get this item moved off to the city attorney. And we would also recommend that every 3 years you require a review committee to take a look at what you ultimately approve. And this will go a long way to improve the business community and the ability to support the public services that your city can provide. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCarty. Is Mr. Banner here? If not, that completes the public hearing. Go back to the council debate.
All right.
And the chair recognizes Councilman Bernson.
Right. Yes, members of the council, I think today's a very important day that we, I know we don't know all the details or which plan we're going to adopt, but I think it's important that we move forward and instruct the city attorney to prepare this for the June ballot. Many years ago, and I don't remember if Mr. Wax was there also. Joel, were you at, you saw the development there in southern France and what the incentives did? I can only tell you that what's really important, and I think all three of the measures have value. I think we need to massage them a little bit. I think the key things are this. Number one, the biggest thing that we do ought to be to attract new businesses to our area. That ought to receive first consideration. Second consideration would be to keep businesses which potentially might leave or might go across the street to another city. Those are the top two. But I also think we need to think in terms of small businesses, the mama papa type businesses, which are still the basis of all business in the United States. are the small businesses. And those are the three prerequisites. I notice we've had requests to eliminate utilities and so forth. I don't know how I'm going to look at that. I will look at it, but I must tell you I'm much more sympathetic to attracting a new large business in than giving a tax break to somebody who's going to be here because they have to be here, because everybody's their customers here. So I just want to throw that out. Some people may not like what I'm saying, but I can't help that. Let the chips fall where they may. But I think it's important that we move forward. And I will tell you right now, I hope that we're not going to come in with anything that's going to raise anybody's taxes. Now, I know some of these proposals call for raises in certain industries. That won't get my vote. What's going to get my vote is something that will attract enough new businesses and keep enough businesses here so that we can augment, in fact, maybe increase the amount of money to our general revenue that we might have lost through any tax breaks. About 10 years ago, I brought a proposal into this council, maybe it was a little longer, and after seeing a model that I had seen, and that was to give all new businesses in Los Angeles that opened a branch in Los Angeles from outside the city a 50% tax break for the first 5 years. It didn't go very far, I can tell you that. The chairman, I won't mention his name, the chairman, not Mr. Alatorre, but the chairman of the Finance Committee said, Hal, we get $8 million a year in new business license fees. That's going to cost us $4 million. And I said, did you ever think of the fact that maybe it'll get us another $20 million? And obviously the council didn't understand that at that time. Maybe they do today. I hope so. I just might add that the tax benefits that we get on revenue from this is not the answer. The real key to this is what we get in sales tax, what we get in property tax values, and other things that generate business and attract business to our community. That's the real benefit of what we're doing. So when you look at the figure, even though there may be a deficit in one area, and maybe there's a way to phase that in also, by the way, Rocky, so it doesn't hit us all at once. I think that it is a plus, and I think we need to move forward. And I thank the mayor and everybody who worked on this proposal. I think they did a good job, and let's go on with it. I think we have time to perfect it before the June ballot.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bernstein. The chair recognizes Councilwoman Miskowski.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a number of questions, but before I start with the questions, I too want to rise and say that this is really something whose time has come. And it was an important part of a concern, I think, as we went into the recession in the early 90s about what was wrong with doing business in Los Angeles. And the tax code was one of those things. The other thing was clearly how hard it was to get permits and the timing it took to get things done in the city. And I think with the new administration and the council behind that, we have resolved and changed a lot of those things. And this is part of, I think, a significant second effort. There are a lot of good ideas around the table today. I don't know that there's a bad idea. But the question is how we really discern what we're doing based on what the risks are and based on how far it really goes to offering those ideas that I think people are talking about. Clearly, tax simplification, simplifying the code, reducing the number of categories, I think 100% we all agree. I think we all agree on the issue of compliance. And I realize that a lot of the compliance material doesn't need to go on the ballot, so it's not in the report today. Unfortunately, as I was looking for it and to see what we were going to be doing in that regard, it's not here today, but I know it's been talked about and it's significant, and we all agree with that. And the next issue is whether it's called relief, reform, or equity, how we really categorize those businesses, both in terms of real equitable taxing and also in terms of relief. One of the things that I did not see, and I would like to have the issue discussed for those who would be willing to answer it, is we've talked about tax incentives and the businesses we would like to have in those categories and the category and how a business gets there. We did not look at something like a tax disincentive. And we have all seen with businesses that are problems in our district, we see them all the time here under conditional use, whether or not they be the junkyards, the so-called recycling efforts that are not really solid recycling efforts, that really create detriment in the community. If not a disincentive, I'd sure like to know that they are in one of the higher categories, because they are not good businesses in our city necessarily, unless they're clearly an industrial area, and we're seeing an awful lot of them that are not today. I would also like to have an issue addressed. I don't think there was a lot of discussion on the use tax rebate. And the use tax rebate, as I understand it, is something, again, in calculation and in a lot of assumptions that is going to be good and revenue producing for the city rather than the way the system is now. But it's very complex, and I would like to understand what degree of risk we're taking and what degree of assumptions we're making, because all of this in the balance of how big a hit it's going to take in our budget are based on those risks and those assumptions. So I think those, I also haven't heard, and I would like some discussion, I understood, I think from the mayor's office, that tax amnesty is an absolute element or requirement that the mayor's proposal contains. As I look at the report in front of us, tax amnesty is only to be considered if a state legislative bill does not pass. And I just want to make sure that if the mayor and the council committee is in agreement with that. And as I understand the tax amnesty program as it's presented here, it's basically saying that if the state preempts and shares with us their taxing information, no one gets an amnesty, and we clearly go immediately towards compliance and enforcement on getting all of those non-city businesses to pay their taxes here without any amnesty considered. So I would just like some clarification on those issues. And another issue that hasn't been addressed, and in terms of how complicated it is and how much we are trying to do in a relatively short time between today and 2 weeks from today, when we will decide if something goes on the ballot, is the issue of whether or not any or all of this proposal can be phased in. And again, I think that relates closely to the idea of how many risks we're taking or how many assumptions we're making. And my biggest concern in this whole program was in a complete overhaul of our system, based on some assumptions, what happened if mid-course, mid-year, we are finding that our assumptions are not holding true, or we are finding that we are in a recessionary period? What adjustments can we make mid-term? And would it be easier in not having to make wholesale adjustments if we were able to phase in some of these items and phase it in by either amount, by percentage of the relief up front or percentages of the relief phased in over a 2 or 3 year period, as opposed to a wholesale 1 year and changing everything. And the reason I'm concerned about that, members of the council, is we pretty strongly agreed last year that we were going to have a housing enforcement program. We all agreed, we all knew what the inspectors were, we all knew we were transferring it to a new office. And what has happened in the first 6 months of that program except chaos? Something we all agreed on, something we were going to implement, something there was a strategy and an outline of how we would get it done. We have not been able to do it correctly. And I'm very, very concerned that we're going to do a wholesale tax reform and again hit some bumps, if not complete chaos, and we've got to have that ability to adjust midterm, and that's why I also think phasing in makes an awful lot of sense rather than trying to do something wholesale all at once.
All right, thank you. The chair recognizes Councilman Chick.
Thank you, Mr. President. Certainly, we have all known that the business tax structure in the city of Los Angeles has not been working well. And we've known for quite a long time that it needs radical reform. And we've known that we need to do things to help the city of Los Angeles regain its competitive edge in terms of attracting and retaining healthy, job-producing, profit-producing businesses. It seems clear to me, and I'm hopeful that this is the case, that this council intends to take a very major step in the right direction. It's clear we're not going to make that final decision today, but I think there's several things that very much need to be focused on in what comes back. My colleague, Councilmember Micikowski, touched on one that's very important, I think, to all of us, and that is how do we, in the most responsible way, make sure that we are making up for the loss in revenue that we are going to be creating. And one of the questions I'd like to have answered when I'm finished with my comments is, what is our track record with tax amnesty programs? What does history and a reality base tell us that in our experience and perhaps in the experience of other government entities, what kind of collection is usually made. And then two, we've left this out of the discussion because it's not very much one of the details before us, but this whole business of AB 385, Assemblyman Knox's bill that's been reintroduced, that would make a radical difference in the ability of this city to collect the dollars that are legitimately owed us from businesses that are not paying and that are hurting the honest tax-paying businesses. We could make further reductions if we collected from everyone who owed us. What is the city's lobbying efforts on that bill? Because quite frankly, whether it's out of my own pocket or not, I'd be willing to go up to Sacramento, and I think we ought to take a major contingency up there and really put some pressure on. It's not just our city, it's others. And not a rhetorical question, but to be answered later, I would like to hear what our business organizations are doing. And I'd like to know that they are sending representatives up there to lobby on the passage of that bill. Finally, I'd like to end with the whole issue of criteria, and I'm paying close attention to the criteria that the mayor's team has laid out and to some of the objections that my colleagues are making. I think we really have to perfect what the criteria are, because we want to make this true tax reform, true business promotion. And I think once we can tighten up on that and hopefully agree that we should take this as far as we can go, so that it's not just a symbolic message, but with reassurances that we're going to balance the budget and not cut any further into infrastructure and constituent services that we need to increase rather than decrease. If you could comment on the tax amnesty track record, and then the city's lobbying efforts that are in place or are going to be. Thank you.
Well, let me address actually both Councilwoman Miskowski and Chick were talking about basically shortfalls in amnesty and whatever. I think that there's within city staff a difference of opinion how much the amnesty would or would not realize. However, our view is that the revenue shortfall provision that says that in the first year, if it's less than $1 million difference, if it's more than $1 million difference, then the mayor and the council can raise rates in order to make up for the shortfall. Assumes in that is amnesty. And amnesty doesn't work, it doesn't work. You don't have, I mean, it doesn't really matter under that scenario whether we agree or we disagree. And that's why we've worded it the way we have, and that's why we believe that's the way to take care of that problem.
But I'd like it to work, because I want companies to be paying.
Yeah, on the tax amnesty, the last tax amnesty was done in 1995, and we collected $19.7 million total. Of that, $6 million was ongoing. In other words, we captured it in the base. So every year from then, we've got an additional $6 million. We, in our opinion, did not advertise that amnesty well, and that comes from the business sector as well. We spent about $100,000 on advertising. We're proposing in this amnesty that we increase that fourfold, and we have already gotten the commitment from the business community that they will support it in trying to get businesses that they represent to take advantage of the amnesty program. We also are in agreement that with respect to, so our view is that we'd get $10 million ongoing with our amnesty in 2000, and that there might be as much as an additional spike of $20 million that would be one time. That's a reasonable extrapolation from the 1995 analysis. $6 million ongoing, $19 million total. We also believe that we will support strongly AB 385, or what used to be 701, and that the business community will also support that as well. We do believe, however, even if we get it, that with respect to out-of-state companies that pay us taxes, because we will not get that information from the state franchise tax, that they still be subject to the amnesty.
The chair recognizes Councilman Savornich.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the council. First, I wholeheartedly support Mr. Alatorre's motion to remove items 6, A and B out of Proposal A, and I would suggest, and I would like to move that we do the same out of each of the proposals. The reason being is that there are ramifications in regards to the taxing of the stevedore companies, the persons who move the cargo down on the waterfront, which are a lot larger than at first glance that we think about. First of all, it's our competitive position with our neighbor port, the Port of Long Beach. They do not have the type of tax that was proposed in the documents that came forward. We are presently in negotiations with a series of stevedore companies trying to attract them to come to the Port of Los Angeles and leave the Port of Long Beach. Adding this tax, I believe, would go ahead and really throw cold water on those negotiations and make stevedoring companies and the shippers decide to possibly stay where they're at. We also have to consider that in regards to the railroad and any type of stage businesses, we're in the midst of, as we discussed yesterday, of constructing the largest surface transportation project in the United States, the Alameda Corridor, and what type of ramifications it would have in regards to businesses wanting to locate or not locate in proximity of the corridor in order that we can generate user fees on the corridor to pay off the bonds that this council approved not too long ago is a consideration that we would also make, we should make. Finally, as probably the only council member here who has a business license, one of the issues that I have in regards to, and there may be others, maybe unbeknownst to me, but one of the things that I would like to mention is, yes, this has been a time in coming. And during the course of my business career, I was approached, wooed, written to by other municipalities around the city of Los Angeles, and they actively pursue, better than we enforce people having business licenses in our city, jurisdictions around us actively pursue businesses in Los Angeles to try to get them to come to their areas, even a small one like mine. And I can count on both hands how many times from municipalities around the city of Los Angeles where my business is located and was located, those municipalities sending letters saying, why don't you consider when your lease is up, come over and see us because boy do we have a deal for you. And indeed, their tax rate was better, and their and on all of the things that they wanted to put forward were better. So I think we're going in the right direction in regards to this entire proposal, and I most certainly think that we need, out of all the proposals, if it indeed is in there, to remove the taxation of the stevedoring companies and the people who move the cargo.
Thank you. The chair recognizes Mr. Wax.
Yes, Mr. President, members of council, I'll be brief since this is going to come back to us. Let me just make some observations. Although I obviously think this should have been before us quite a bit of time ago, a good 6 months ago, to work this out, I do believe, as Mr. Bernsen says, we have time, although it's going to be more difficult. And I basically support a combination of the mayor's proposal and Mr. Fuhrer's proposal. I think that the mayor's proposal clearly does try to provide the broadest base of tax relief and the broadest and most equitable reforms of our system. I think Mr. Fuhrer, while he lowers the overall dollar amount of tax relief, has brought in some specifics that really enhance this, particularly with small businesses and startup businesses. And I think that they're really both thinking in the same framework, and they're both going down the same path to try to provide simplified, broad-based, equitable tax release for all of the businesses in the city. I see this, and Ms. Goldberg may correct me, if I see it as fundamentally different in opposition to Ms. Goldberg's approach, which I don't care for, because I think it leaves it simply for us to target specific industries for reasons this council may determine in the future. And I think that that's what's been wrong with our tax policy all along. You have heard me object. It's not something I have not spoken out on. You heard me object when the MWD came in and it wanted a tax break. You heard me object when the HMOs came in and they wanted a tax break. You heard me object when the motion picture industry wanted a tax breaks in 2 parts of the city only. You heard me object when the telemarketers wanted a special tax relief. And each time, you heard me certainly object when the arena wanted it. You heard me object when Trizacon wanted it. And each time, I would say, we can't target one business or one industry like this. We need an overall policy. And everyone would say, yes, we need an overall policy, Joel, but until we get one, we got to give relief to these people. Now we have one, and you want to undo it and go back to targeting special industries and special businesses in the future. Why not all the other businesses around town who don't have lobbyists? Why not all the little businesses in every neighborhood in this town who have to deal with our onerous system to get some relief now? Why not everyone share a little bit for once, as opposed to the ones who have the best lobbyists? And I think that the approach that Mr. Fuhrer and the mayor have taken, if they could get their heads together perhaps and meld their two, could provide that. And I think we ought to try that approach. I assure you, it will never close the door. Knowing the realities of the city council and the human nature, it will never close the door to a specific industry who feels it needs relief coming in, because they are not bashful, and they come in and they're forceful, and they find support among the council. But at least for once, let's give it to everyone else.
Mr. Wax, you've expired.
And I am more than happy, because Mr. Burnson, I've said all that I want. But I think you could use a better term than expiring.
The chair recognizes Mrs. Walters.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have lived with this for a few weeks now, since the mayor issued his proposal. We've had it in committee, and now we have it here. In Mr. Delgadillo's remarks to the council, he said that they've provided $23 million worth of tax relief. May I say to the other members that $23 million worth tax relief on one hand is equal to $23 million budget, general fund budget deficit on the other hand, and we can't lose sight of that. They talk about it being revenue neutral with enhancements. The enhancements themselves are questionable. A big enhancement that they're counting on is tax amnesty. Their own consultant in one of the reports that they gave said the tax amnesty projections in the mayor's reform proposal may be optimistic. It talked about the comparative analysis between cities' taxpayer files and other databases, and it said the report found that businesses underreporting their gross receipts account for over half of potential revenues. In the tax amnesty program that the consultant, Beverly Burr, Beverly Burr, says that only 5 years ago an amnesty program brought in roughly $20 million with $6 million estimated as ongoing revenue. The city spent approximately $100,000 on advertising the previous amnesty. The mayor's proposal estimates that this ongoing portion of the revenue would rise to around $10 million during a 2000 amnesty due to more thorough advertising. We do not know for certain how much advertising affects amnesty revenues. In estimating revenues over the period of the tax reform proposal, we assumed pessimistically that amnesty revenues would be closer to the revenues received during the 1995 amnesty program. And if that were the case, it would bring us another $5 or $6 million in ongoing tax and not be the revenue neutralizer that is said. The mayor's office also said that the budget issues have gotten better and better. Maybe we're looking at different budgets, but anytime a budget comes in and it's balanced on unknown projections, unverified projections, and if a whole bunch of if this happens, then we can have this money. I don't say that's better. And to the advertising of the amnesty, to depend on that with unknown consequences is really not the best thing. And council members, very quickly, I think that this is something that deserves months of study on our part, months of running various scenarios, months of working with the various parts of the business community throughout the city to come up with something that is consistent, with something that is fair, and with something that works to the best interest of both constituents, residents, and business people. And I think this proposal needs a lot more study, but as Ms. Goldberg said, I'm going to support Proposal B, Option B, with the amendments to it if the will of the council is to go forward at this time. I would really prefer not to have to vote on either one at this point.
I think Mr. Alatorre's motion is not to give approval to any of them. It's simply to ask the attorneys to draft them all. I don't think any vote today would indicate for or against any proposal or any portion of it. It's simply to prepare them all, and then we'll be able to adopt those we wish or not when it comes back. That's my understanding of your motion. Is that Ms. Goldberg, Ms. Fuhrer? Okay. The chair recognizes Councilwoman Galanter.
You know, I have to, we're all sweetness and light here, and I have to, as usual, inject a little different tone into this. I've been waiting for over 2 years for this tax equity study to come out, and you alluded to this earlier, Mr. Wax. We were promised this, I've forgotten even how long ago it was. I know Mr. Keeley promised it to me on a number of occasions. And what we kept hearing was, gee, it needs more work, so we're not going to release it yet. We're not going to have the council involved in reviewing the study because it isn't done yet. I remember Mrs. Walters asking for it a number of different times. It seems to me through at least 2 budget cycles. And here we are with a few weeks, is it even a few weeks, left to go, and now we're being told this is an absolute crisis, this has to go on this ballot or the world will come to an end. It didn't come to an end all that extra time that we weren't having the opportunity to spend the same kind of time that the mayor's office had, and it's appropriate for them to study it for as long as they need. It's also appropriate for us to do it if we're going to do our jobs. And I do want to say I really resent being told, look, you've got 2 weeks to get this in shape and it's got to go on the ballot or somehow you're anti-business. Having got that out of my system, let me say that I'm trying very hard to follow the logic of this. And every so often, something comes up that makes me wonder if I'm following it or if there really isn't any. It would seem to me that since we depend not only on the business tax for city revenue, but also some of the things it may produce for us, that businesses may produce for us, like sales tax, that we ought to be looking to give the best incentives to the types of businesses that have a multiple benefit to the city treasury. And particularly if we're going to let them off the hook for some of the business tax they have generated in the past, we ought to be looking at businesses that tend to bring in something else as well. And the obvious one that occurs to me immediately is retail, especially cars. As I understand it, the retail sector actually gets a slight increase in its rate. The other one that strikes me, and this is purely anecdotal, is that if you look around this town, one of the things that makes us such a wonderful place is the enormous number of small businesses, small, families usually, who start out and say, I'm going to take a risk and set up a restaurant. We have the best variety of restaurants at the best prices of any city I've ever been in. It's really phenomenal. And restaurant work is a very risky business. For most neighborhood restaurants, not the fancy ones where the lawyers eat, but the regular restaurants, the margin, the profit margin is very, very small indeed, if they're even making a profit. For them, a couple of $100s difference in a tax payment is a very big deal. For the major law firms, for example, I don't mean to pick on anyone in particular, but it seems to me all the major law firms I can think of have their offices in the city of Los Angeles. They may be paying a lot of tax money, but they're only moving from downtown to Century City. They're not moving to or they're just opening extra offices other places. I just find it hard to worry about as much about the the impact of a change in the taxes on those businesses as I do on the little neighborhood restaurants and the little neighborhood hardware stores and the little neighborhood things who have a tough enough time competing with the big names and the chains everywhere. So I am very confused in the logic of this as I try to sort through all the proposals, why we have picked this number of categories versus that number of categories, and why we don't seem to be focusing on the businesses that offer us multiple benefits in the form of revenue to the city. And the last thing I want to say is I had to give up my business license. I had to give up my business when I was elected to the city council. But what I learned when I did have a business and I went in to pay my business tax was, here I am, so I agree with the basic notion of simplifying. I've got a master's degree from a very elite school, they tell me. And I could not figure this out. Every single year I had to go in and have some city employees spend a fair amount of time with me explaining the difference in the way you tax stuff. This is one I haven't seen addressed here. I was doing consulting work, and some of my revenue came from clients within the city of Los Angeles, which was taxed that was straightforward. I could follow that one. But for a revenue that came from a client in, let's say, Orange County, it was taxed at a different rate, and you had to figure out the percentage of this and the percentage of that. Now, law firms have that problem. The little neighborhood restaurant really doesn't. And the people I think are most in need of getting some simplification in the tax code are the people who need to spend most of their time actually running their business and not spending the time complying with government regulations.
Thank you, Ms. Glenner. The chair recognizes Councilman Holden. Oh, don't worry, Nate. Everyone's gotten a little extra time. I'll give you a little extra time. Then Mr. Hernandez is up.
You gave them a lot of extra
Mike,
time.
once the stuff goes in the
2
computer,
minutes
it
over
doesn't
for
get-
5 minutes.
Mr.
over for the
Holden,
other
you'll
one.
get your time. Just talk about the issue. Go ahead.
The issue is that you make a difference, and that's not very good. When you want to, it happens.
Told you, you can have the time. Just go.
Okay, well, I wanted to take that time to tell you what you've done wrong in the past.
All right, your time's up. Go ahead.
Mr. Alatorre has already stated that we're going to draft an ordinance reflective of A, B, and C. And you know what? It doesn't make any sense. Because when those ordinances come back before you, you'll be debating each of them the same as you are right now. And, when he used to be in Sacramento, he would have done something much wiser and said, let's have a committee bill. And what he really means by that is take the best of each and try and incorporate that into one ordinance with the likelihood that you might get the voters to vote for it. If you give the impression that you're taking from Mary to give to John, Peter and Paul story type, it's not going to pass. And somebody's going to vote against it because they think that you're hurting them. It is not going to be revenue neutral immediately. That we can almost say is a fact. That being the case, you're going to generate some opposition that may be substantial. I think if this tax reform proposal is to go forward with the vote of the majority of the people in the city, then I think let's make it right from the gate. If we can do it in June, fine. Nothing wrong with an early election, presidential primary next March or whatever, April, March, whenever they're going to have it, and it'll be done with. So you're looking at one. What was that again? Well, you're going to, first of all, be assured that you guys are going to put something on the ballot anyway for the next primary election statewide. You are going to do that. You always do. And so this would just be part of it. If but at least you'll have it together. Good chance you'll have the votes for it. And I just think if you take the best of each part, incorporate it and make it into the mayor's proposal or whomever proposal you want, you have a chance of getting it voted on and getting it approved. Otherwise, you can argue and debate all you want and get your point of view across here, and they'll vote for your ordinance and not the other two ordinances. And you know what will happen? It'll go down the tubes. So I'm just throwing that out there. I've been around for a while, and I'm just a country boy. I don't know much, but I'm making that suggestion. Think about it.
Mr. Holden, you have 14 extra seconds here.
Well, my 14 seconds that I have left over.
All right, the chair recognizes Councilman Hernandez.
Yeah, first of all, I want to remind all my colleagues that the council president previously denied me my full 3 minutes, so I didn't get a chance to speak at that time. And
You'll have as much time as you need here.
Members of the council, you know, I want to point out a few things that are bothersome to me about the debate. One, I need Mr. Deaton to answer at the end of my statement the realities of what has to go on the ballot and what is the reasoning behind something having to go on the ballot. My understanding is one reason is because we're going to increase some taxes. But the reality is that through ordinance, we could do a lot of the work of tax simplification, and we can do a lot of the reductions. Okay, and I wanted us to be aware of that because there's this urgency to put it on the ballot, and we're not even debating the impact of an issue like this on the ballot at the same time that charter reform is on the ballot, and that's a major concern for me. Now, I also want to remind this council that currently an ad hoc committee, and besides, on the charter reform proposal, there's a whole question of a finance department that deals with the budget with the city. But I also want to remind the full council that when we talked about economic development in terms of consolidation and the creation of an oversight committee that deals with the mission statement of a city, in terms of economic development, that is still before us, and I don't hear that urgency to get that work done. Now, the reason I'm bringing it to your attention is when you look at the current proposal before us, there's a lot of issues that some people could determine arbitrary. And I'll give you an example. The threshold for taxing, for example, a director, a producer, a writer in the film industry is at $68,000, and basically paying a tax at the lower rates. At the same time, an attorney, a professional, and the legal services tend to be at the highest rate. And I'd like to know how that decision was reached. The reason I want to know how that decision was reached is because other people who are impacted at a greater rate in terms of that decision tend to be the kinds of businesses, for example, that do shoe repair and shoe shines. Tend to be electrical repair shops. They're paying at a threshold of $24,000 and again paying $3.10 per thousand. Watch repair shops, veterinarians, beauty shops, barber shops. Barber shops threshold is $14,000, but if I'm a film producer, it's $68,000. How did we make that determination? Okay, well, you're a producer, you got a lot of money. Well, the reality is, why are we taxing you a little bit of it? And the reality is we have a lot of need for people whose shoes have to be repaired. And why are we taxing them more? Okay, now, that is part of the arbitrary question I'm asking because I listened to what Mr. Wax had to say, and currently proposal number A does a lot of that. Okay, now, when I talk about an economic development strategy of the city, I want us to understand that we as a council have talked about the living wage ordinance. And where's the incentive, where's the criteria that takes into account those businesses that are paying a living wage? And how is it that we're helping them in terms of this tax structure? That is not one of the categories for consideration. And we did not take that into account, and again, as a city, we want to do that. You know, I disagreed with the mayor's statement that when he compares the city of Los Angeles to Calabasas. Don't get me wrong, but we're just not in the same league. Why aren't we comparing our tax system with that of New York's, where they actually have an income tax system? Why aren't we comparing it to San Francisco, to other major cities, as opposed to the smaller cities? I think it's a misrepresentation to us to say we're more burdensome, because a lot of businesses want to be in Los Angeles. Let's face it, we're an international city, and how that's being reviewed. Mr. Kerry, I need you to answer to everybody here. How many businesses are paying at the 9 categories right now in the city of Los Angeles?
Okay, could we also get them to answer the other question?
Yeah, but how many businesses?
Currently, we have about 220,000, but we only have 5 basic tax rates at the current proposal.
Okay, but in the city of LA, how many businesses pay in the 9 categories?
Oh, I'm sorry, 1.
Only one business.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Now, I want to bring it to people's attention because really I'm trying to figure out what's the hurry? Why does it have to go on this ballot? Where is it that we're looking at an economic strategy for a city? How is it that, what is it that we can be doing to simplify this tax system that we have in the city without having to go on the ballot? And that's what I wanted Mr. Deaton to answer at this time, and I thank you for my time, Mr. President.
Right. If you, the reason Mr. Hernandez is also right on, I mean, if I might put in, on the irony of not having an income tax, the whole reason we have a messed up system is because the state has precluded cities from having an income tax, and our system evolved out of trying to come up with something that was like that but wasn't that, and that has always been the fundamental problem that cities in California have had, and a disadvantage against cities like New York.
Right. Basically, Mr. Hernandez's question on why this has to go to ballot is that under Proposition 218, any tax increase has to be put before the voters in a municipal election in which people run for office at the local level. For example, the next time that we could do that would be in the year 2001 if we do not do it in June. To give you an idea, if you look on the chart that we've handed out, in the number of winners and losers, if you look at losers, there's roughly on option A, 1/3 of the businesses will have a tax increase and 2/3 will have a tax decrease. In the chart below that, you see the businesses that will get the largest tax increase and decrease, and there are 5 of the larger ones. And the tax increase comes from 2 basic reasons. One is that if at the lower level, our lowest rate now is $1.18. In the mayor's proposal, it's being increased to $1.20 in some cases and $1.40 in other cases. And the second approach is that in primary SICs, if your secondary SIC happens to have a lower tax rate, you could actually increase your overall tax rate by having to go with the primary. And those are the 2 reasons that there's a tax increase.
Okay.
Which question did you want response to, Mr. Councilman Hernandez?
I already got my responses to the questions I asked.
Okay.
All right, Chair recognizes, Chair, he's got his answers, then anyone else wants other answers, they can ask him. I have Mr. Savornich and Mr. Holden for a second time before Ms. Goldberg and Mr. Alatorre for a third time. So Chair recognizes Councilman Savornich.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the council. I find this debate in regards to tax reform quite interesting, but I would wish during the course of the last few years, and I would hope that it becomes part of this process, that in regards to tax reform and tax cuts, there would be a similar effort during the process to go ahead and have tax enforcement, which historically, over the course of many of our tenure here on the City Council, the City Clerk's office has not been provided the necessary tools in regards to personnel to go after persons who are not paying their business taxes in the City of Los Angeles. And what I see out of all of these proposals is that when we're talking about amnesty, we're still talking about people voluntarily saying, guess what? I haven't been paying my taxes, but I now would like to come forward to do it. And we give them a period to do that. What we have not done, and have not done well as a city, is to locate and identify those individuals or corporations that are doing business in the City of Los Angeles, making sure that they do have a business tax license certificate. What is it, Mr. Comrie, Mr. Gary, is it a BTRC, Business Tax Registration Certificate, to go after them and to make sure that they actually pay up. The question that I do have is that if a person opens a business in the City of Los Angeles, in any of the categories, and chooses not to get a business license, what do we do as a city? Do we prosecute?
Yes, we have, assuming we find them through either our tax discovery programs or a door-to-door survey or some other method, there is a civil action that would be taken, or if we can't get your attention, we will pursue you criminally.
Okay. How many businesses has the City of Los Angeles pursued in the last year or even the year before that in identifying entities that do not have a business license, that we went after, that we pursued in court with civil action? And is there any provisions within the charter or any code or any higher law or power where we actually can close down businesses who refuse to pay the penalties and refuse to pay their license?
Only paint stores in the harbor.
That's one too many.
Again, I don't think we can close a business down because this is not really regulatory, it's to raise revenue. I don't have the numbers of the businesses that we pursue, but typically we're going to generate, both in field enforcement and tax audit, anywhere from $15 to $30 million in additional taxes from underpayments.
So what we're talking about is a series of tax reductions which are before us that we want to put before the voters. And we have to take this action by March 5th for it to be on the June ballot. And I would like to see the same type of zest and zeal by the city family in the budget process that's coming up to put more personnel in the city clerk's office and in the city attorney's office to go after the deadbeats in the city of Los Angeles who don't pay their business license, who don't even bother to get one. If we penalize them, don't pay their fines. And basically, if someone refused to pay their civil penalties, refused to take out a business license, they could go on forever doing business in the city of Los Angeles because we cannot or will not close them. And so when we're talking about this entire proposal before us, I've heard a lot of you colleagues talk about equity. And what the biggest question of equity is, regardless if we're talking about a $3 million tax cut, or regardless if we're talking about a $12 million tax cut, or whether or not we're talking about a $21 million tax cut. The biggest question in regards to equity is that there are hundreds, if not thousands, of businesses illegally doing business in the city of Los Angeles, and we're not going after them, and everybody has to pay more on their taxes in every category because we won't put the resources to go after them.
Thank you, Mr. Swarnish. Members of council, the computer constantly readjusts as you play with the buttons here, and it now shows Mr. Holden, Ms. Golander, and Mr. Burnson for the second time, followed by Ms. Goldberg, Mr. Alatorre, and Mr. Hernandez for the third time. So the chair recognizes Councilman Holden.
I move to the previous question.
Miss Goldberg, I don't even touch this machine. It's just I watch it and it comes up the way it is, and come look. All right. Just would you hold the order of the speakers in case the previous question does not approve? Open the roll on the previous.
Ask for no vote.
Open the roll on the previous question.
No vote. No vote. It's not working.
Is it working now? All right, open the roll on previous question, close the roll. All right, close the roll.
6 ayes, 6 noes.
All right, the previous question is not approved. The chair recognizes Councilman Golander.
Laura, what was that? Okay, can we just clarify a couple of things? Mr. Deaton, if you would, or somebody. Under each of these proposals, who gets the biggest tax increase? How much is it? And what is it estimated to mean for the city treasury? And similarly, who gets the biggest decrease, and what is that?
If you refer, again, I think you have a chart, and it gives you an idea. On option A, the mayor's proposal, the largest decrease is legal services, 1.6 million, apparel, about $1 million, special trade contractors, security and commodity brokers.
Hold on, wait. What I want to know is that 1.6 million the total hit on the general fund?
Yes.
Okay. So that's all the legal services we can think of. I mean, we've identified all these lawyers, and we've said, okay, they're not going to.
Right. Dollar.
That's a dollar decrease.
Roughly $1.5 million of the 23 million is basically the way to look at it.
All right, and can you find for me in here somewhere the neighborhood restaurant?
I will look on the chart and
It's
get that for you.
neither, as far as I can tell, it's neither the biggest increase nor the biggest decrease.
No, it's not.
Okay.
But wholesale trade, for example, as I was explaining before, wholesale trade is the biggest increase because right now wholesale is $1.18, so it's either going to $1.20 or $1.40. And wholesale trade apparel is in the same.
But what it's hard to tell from this chart is what does it mean to the average company? What does it mean to the average law firm? This tells us what it means to the Treasury. It's almost...
We will provide you a chart. We have a chart by SIC code and winners and losers, et cetera.
All right, but I mean, let's take law firms as an example. There are very big law firms with hundreds of attorneys, and then there are solo practitioners, and they both pay, presumably, under any of these proposals or under the existing system, they pay at the same rate.
Right.
But the difference that the change would make to any of those depends in large part on how marginal they are. If they're marginal, a little bit of difference makes a big deal.
Well, in this case, I think in all cases with legal services, theirs would come down 8%. 8%.
Right, but 8%, you know, let's go back to the restaurants. If it's a $200 difference in the tax payment over the course of the next year, if your profit margin is $10,000, $200 is really important to you. But if your profit margin is in the millions, then $200 doesn't mean anything.
Right. The concept of the business, as I think Mr. Wax was indicating before, is the concept of the business tax essentially has been is that we have attempted in a as best we could to reflect gross profits,
Right.
and the higher the rate indicates a larger gross
Okay.
profit.
All right, thank you. Wait, this is my 3 minutes, what's left of it. The other concern I have here, as I listen to all of this, is what we're actually going to be asked to put on the ballot is a series of tax increases. Basically, people will get something that says, vote yes on tax reform, this will be good for business. And everybody will say, oh yeah, it's reform, so we need to do all of this, including sticking somebody else with a tax increase. It seems to me we need to be honest with the public about this, as with so many other things that get on the ballot under the headline reform, reform, and everybody jumps on them. There may be hidden costs here. I just want to remind you all that back in the old days, I'm still, I think, the only person who was on the council, I know I'm the only person who was on the council at the time who never voted for it at all, not even to put it on the ballot. But ethics reform, which everybody in the
You're
city
right.
wound up for, raised the elected official salaries by 40%. We didn't tell the public that.
It's one of the outstanding.
Some of us
pieces
tried, but, well, yeah.
Okay, your time is definitely up.
Not for another 4 years.
Taking Ms. Galanter's idea of restaurants and Ms. Misakowski's idea, why don't you give the tax rates based on whether they get A rating, B rating, C rating, et cetera. All right, Chair recognizes Councilman Bernson.
Great idea,
I was going to move the previous question, but there's so many people that have already said they want to speak.
All the more reason to do.
So I'm going to speak very briefly. You know, Mr. Hernandez hit the nail on the head. If it wasn't for the adjustments that we need when we need to raise the taxes, this could be done by ordinance. And I don't know that, I think we have a little time, and I'm prepared to move forward today to at least instruct the city attorney. But I hope we can find something that isn't going to require tax increases. I know that there are categories, and I know that, you know, I think there has to be a better way, and maybe we can find it. So why don't everybody talk quickly, and let's adjourn, okay?
Quickly. The chair recognizes Councilman Fuhrer quickly.
House said we should go on, so I'm going to stop.
House said we should go on. The chair recognizes Councilman Goldberg.
I want to make a couple of clarifying remarks in terms of the debate. One in particular to you, Mr. Wax. When I talked about targeting, I didn't mean individual businesses. I meant that in the report that a lot of this relies on, which was the New Economy Project by David Friedman, what they really talked about was reductions need to be significant in order to really affect any individual or whole industry's cost of doing business. One of my problems with a little bit spread across so many categories is that I don't think we've significantly lowered the taxes to make anyone's decisions change. And that what we should be spending our time doing is figuring out which industries are likely to use this as a decision-making factor, and how deep do you have to cut to make it make a decision-making point, and then do that. That's all I'm saying. Not business by business, believe me. I too am trying to get away from that. The things we've done in the short term were done because in the long term we didn't do those things, okay? But it isn't business by business. Secondly, I want to be real clear that everybody should understand what we're talking about in terms of the little guy. Everybody's worried about the little guy. 199 individual taxpayers, that's 1/10 of 1% at the top level, will get 20% of the tax relief under this proposal. Let me say that again. 199, that's 1/10 of 1%, will get 20% of the tax relief. Okay? Once I take this off of the material that we got and answer the questions in committee. If you want to know how I came to that number, look at the memo from the CLA to the committee dated January 29th, 1999, which asks the businesses paying $100,000 and up, and lists them, and there are 199 of them, and the tax decrease they get, which comes out to $4.8 million out of 20 million, is 20%. 199 businesses get 20% of the tax relief. That's a big part of the problem. This is not about the little guy. Let's take a look at the little guy again. The threshold for when you start paying taxes, as Mr. Hernandez rightly pointed out, is what tells you who helps the little guy. If the threshold is $24,000 in one category and $100,000 in another category, you may be a gardener that's getting a little bitty tiny tax relief, but the gigantic landscaping corporation is getting all of the real money on the tax rate change. That's one of the problems. We have not gone into where these lines have to be. I do not dispute with the mayor's office 1 minute about the need to reform taxes. I don't dispute for 1 minute with the mayor's office about some of the goals of this. Some goals we do dispute. I don't think they targeted enough, but that's a difference of opinion. But I do believe that we are not at the point in time where this is a correct proposal to call tax reform, partly because of what the concerns raised by Mr. Burnson. We're going to sell this as tax relief when at the fewest 24%, that's 1 in 4, or at the highest 35%, that's a little more than 1 in 3, is going to get a tax increase. How is that tax relief across the board? We can come up with something that will work. The mayor's office can provide that leadership. We can work this out. There is no reason, in my view, to rush on this and come up with something which has the appearance of relief, but which raises some people's taxes, which doesn't deal with the inequities that are in the problem, and which gives the top 199 taxpayers a fifth of all of the relief that's going to be paid out. I don't think that's what we wanted to do. And I'm not urging really that you adopt mine or Mr. Feuer's or the mayor's, but to step back a second and say we can do better in tax reform. We have so much information now from all of the studies that have been done by the consultants. We really can do this right. And finally, we can't be goaded into this by the sky is falling mentality. Because you remember everybody said all of the people would be laid off and all the businesses that would close with living wage. Well, none of that happened. The sky won't fall if we take our time and do this right. And I don't disagree that the mayor's office is correct in raising as a principal goal of his administration that we do tax reform. I support that 100%, and I always have. I think we're rushing to judgment.
Now, this is Councilman Alatorre. Where's Richard?
He might want to close.
Yeah, so let me go to Mr. Hernandez, and we'll go back to Mr. Alatorre when he comes back. Chair recognizes Councilman Hernandez.
Members of the council, I also rise as one of the first members who started talking about a tax simplification system. And there's no question in my mind that it's something we want to be able to do. I need to ask Mr. Deaton a question. Mr. Deaton, in order to reduce taxes, in order to simplify the tax code that's before us, does that have to be on the ballot?
No.
I just wanted everybody to understand it so that we don't confuse that issue. The only thing that has to go on the ballot is if we want to increase taxes. And that has to be understood. And that's why I don't understand what's the hurry. Now, members of the council, I've introduced two other motions that I think is important that be part of this debate. One motion is what we call 11E, and it's before you, and being in the spirit of what today's hearing is about, I'm introducing it so it could be considered. But I therefore move that options A, B, and C, and any other options proposed be amended to include two additional tax categories. One tax, and this is to deal with businesses that might not be desirable but require more code enforcement on behalf of the city. For example, junkyards, payday loan businesses, other businesses the council should pay taxes at maybe $750 per thousand and have a threshold of $14,000. Adult businesses, strip clubs, firearm dealers, firearm wholesalers, firearm temporary dealers at conventions should pay taxes at a much greater $10 per thousand sales and a minimum threshold gross receipts of $14,000. Now, the reason I wanted to introduce this motion into the discussion, that's been part of the overall debate we've been having as a council in regards to certain desirable businesses in our city versus undesirable businesses that require much more code enforcement on our part and cost us more. The second motion I'm introducing is basically to the city legislative analysts, and besides options A, B, and C and other options proposed, it be amended to instruct the city clerk, city attorney, and chief legislative analyst to review the use tax allocation formulas prepared and prepare legislation so that we could seek sponsorship at the state level to address the use tax allocation issue in the city of Los Angeles. Currently, we're generating about 1/3 of the usage tax that we could be generating because we share it with the rest of the county. And as a city, a lot of cities are benefiting by being part of the county and yet making the revenue in the city of LA and spending it someplace else. So I'm asking that also be part of the instructions in regards to this tax reform measure.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hernandez. The chair is going to rule if we adopt Councilman Alatorre's motion, which is to instruct the city attorney to prepare all of the options, that all of these amending motions be referred to the ad hoc committee, and when the city attorney reports back to the ad hoc committee with them, you can consider them all and bring them back to the council. Otherwise, if we start debating now firearms dealers and porn shops and all, we've got a whole agenda still. So the chair recognizes Councilman Alatorre.
I'd like to try and bring this to an end. Is that right, Mike? All right. Thank you. Mr. President, members, I would recommend number one, and my motion was to adopt, to move all three of them so that the city attorney can be instructed to provide us with a working draft. That number one, the motions 11A through F, that they be referred to the ad hoc committee, at which time we will be able to evaluate them, what the fiscal impact is, and the like, and deal with them at that time. Let me just try and just focus it, and very briefly. This is not a new issue. This issue has been with us for years. I think that all of us at one time or another have talked about it in our districts, about the need for business tax reform, especially when we're talking to businesses. Now, I think what's important is that people understand that this was not done in a vacuum. This was not just done arbitrarily and some winners and some losers, but there was a process that was used throughout it. We may disagree with that process or with the criteria that was set, but there was a reason for it all. We can now decide that we want to do up, down, a whole variety of businesses. and we may have a different opinion as to what we want to accomplish. But I think what we wanted to accomplish was simplification as well as meaningful tax reform for businesses. And it provides us a vehicle to make adjustments, because we should not be voting on a scenario or anything else. We just want to move the thing forward. And I think it is important that we put it on the ballot, because this isn't just something that came up 2 months ago, but it's been with us, and I think that it's important that we move forward. And I would ask for an aye vote to allow the city attorney to prepare the instructions that are necessary to put this matter before the ballot. I'd ask for an aye vote.
Mr. Deaton is wanting 1 minute. He has not spoken twice yet.
Oh, man, you spoke about 5 times.
Mr. Deaton.
All I would suggest is that the council adopt A, C, and D, and that way the city attorney, these are substitutes for B and C, and that's the proper ones. Those are the ones that the office,
Okay.
so if you adopt
Without objection, then we'll...
A, C, and D.
All right, that's Mr. Alatorre's motion. Open the roll on Councilman Alatorre's motion. Close the roll.
10 ayes, 1 no.
That's approved.
Thank you very much, Mike.
Thank you.
You're just a gentleman and a scholar.
Next order, Mr. Clerk. The members of council, we have several items. In fact, the
Mr.
chair
President,
recognizes Councilwoman Miskowski.
If I could ask the council to suspend the rules and take item 3. It's a minor appeal in my district. We have citizens
All right.
who've been waiting to testify
If there's no
on a case.
objection, without objection, we'll go to item number 3. Councilwoman Miskowski, do you want to first tell us what it is, or do you want to have a
Let me present it.
public
I'm not
hearing?
sure if we have a planning department here. It's an appeal on a matter affecting the Mulholland specific plan, where the director approved a sign-off for a single-family house. Neighbors have appealed it. It's a dispute over an easement and whether or not the house is properly designed in the Mulholland area. And we do have a recommendation from the Planning Committee and a recommendation from the Planning Department, but I think we have the two parties here to testify, and Mr. Duke Perrin is here from the Planning Department, who can just make a brief report as well, so we can get right into the public hearing.
With the Planning Department. This is an appeal, and was brought before the Planning Land Use Management Committee on February 9th, at which time the committee denied the appeal and concurred with 2 additional conditions. The situation between the appellant and the original case was over the driveway and access to the driveway. The driveway has since been, the parking garage has been moved to the street. The additional 2 conditions have to do with the fact that no retaining wall will be built in the rear, denying access to the neighbor. That was one of the concerns. And the second concern had to do with not prohibiting the use of the driveway for the adjacent neighbor to back his car out from the garage and turn it around.
You want to have the public hearing now? All right, I have 3 cards. Is this Ofer Eine? Is that right? Eine? You're first, followed by Jeff Burke, and then Elvira Perez de Filippi.
Thank you. My name is Ofer Ini, and I'm the son of Shaul Ini, who is the owner of the vacant lot. I will restrict my testimony to the issues that were raised during the last meeting. First, the De Filippis, our neighbors, suggested that we were planning to build a retaining wall on the easement. This is totally incorrect. The plan clearly shows no retaining wall will be built on the easement. The plans were reviewed by city planning, and this fact was actually confirmed. Further, the plans were reviewed for possible necessity for such a wall, and this was rejected as well. I believe that this claim can only be the result of repeated misreading of the drawings. Second, it was suggested that the new construction will reduce our neighbors' accessibility to their existing garage. Once again, the plans were reviewed by city planning, and it was determined that this, again, is not the case. Since we are not going to build anything on the existing paved easement, the De Filippi's accessibility, at the least, will not be changed in any way. In fact, the opposite is the case. Since the existing driveway is currently bordered by moderate upward slope, which is totally inaccessible by car, the proposed construction may actually enhance our neighbors' ability to access their garage. They will be able to back their cars onto the new driveway located on currently inaccessible dirt leading to our garage. Third, it was suggested that the construction may be an extraordinary case due to the moderate slope. More specifically, the need for grading may require the use of dynamite or may be in some other way unsafe. Once again, this is totally incorrect. We reviewed the plans with city engineers, both structural and specifically grading. In both cases, it was pointed that this is completely an ordinary case, which will not require any special construction techniques. A geologist also re-reviewed the plans and affirmed this conclusion. He also wrote a letter which basically states that this project is actually simple for a moderate slope and is perfectly safe. Finally, as you can see from the plans, the easement will not be used, will only be used to access a 2-car garage. Another 3-car garage, which was originally planned to use the easement for access, was reoriented and now will be accessed directly from the street. And this was done in an effort to reach a compromise. The easement specifically states that its purpose is for the owner to access his property. I submit to you that we have done everything possible to make as little use of the easement and to satisfy the desires of our neighbor for a minimum amount of traffic and disturbance. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff Burke and Elvira De Filippi.
Jeff Burke is our attorney and had to leave. I'm going to speak for myself. I'm Elvira Perez De Filippi. First of all, I would like to address Mr. Innes' son comments. Although I think these issues are minor issues, the ones that have just been addressed, I would like to respond to them, and then I will just briefly go through mine. We are talking about a retaining wall, which is the edge to a driveway. This retaining wall would have to be placed in our land. In the developer's plans, because we had opposition to that wall has not been shown. I must say that I'm an architect and a general contractor. I've been in this industry for 25 years, and I don't know any way of keeping 6 feet of soil, of loose soil, up in the air without some sort of wall. So whether the wall is shown or not, it will be required. Mr. Rini also said that planning has confirmed that the wall is not necessary. Planning is not the branch of building and safety that determines the need for retaining walls. That need is determined by building and safety itself. Planning specifically left decision on this matter to the Department of Building and Safety by putting a clause that's an affidavit that both parties would have to sign as a condition to obtaining a permit. So planning is really keeping outside of this issue altogether. The location of this 2-car garage, 80 feet into our property, hardly does anything to make our driveway more usable by us. It's 12 feet away of our existing garage. Their garage is still in the design phase. It could be accommodated anywhere they wanted in the property. However, they are choosing to put it 12 feet away from the front of our garage and 12 feet away from our main access into our home. We think that the pre-existing property should be respected as a pre-existing use, and accommodations for design should be made so that it impacts as little as possible the use of our property. The garage that was moved to the front was not the one over which we had concerns. The one we have concerns about is the one that's 80 feet into our property, not the one which was pretty close to the front of the property. Mr. Rini says that they have done whatever they could to compromise, but none of what they have done, including adding more windows to the front, which satisfied Councilwoman Misikowski, addresses any of our concerns for the safety of the use of our driveway, for changing the front of the property, shedding water into our property, cutting 6 of our biggest trees, one being an oak that we planted ourselves. Our opposition is not based on our desire of not having the neighbor use their easement rights, but our position is based on their abuse of those rights. There are safety concerns, privacy concerns by turning the property around. We cannot put a privacy fence. They are cutting our trees. They are shedding water over our property, etc. In addition, the house is facing the driveway, which violates both Mulholland Scenic Plan because it's inconsistent with the surrounding homes, all of which face the street. They don't just add windows, they face the street. And it's also inconsistent with the Girard Tract Ordinance, Section 16-50405AI, which requires homes to have frontage on improved street. Clearly, the proposed house that fronts on the driveway violates the ordinance. We, of course, would like the appeal to be upheld for all of these reasons, but we don't know whether it is an interest of this council to revise these issues in that depth. So, at the bare minimum, we would like to correct a mistake that was issued in the meeting minutes for the last meeting. The plans that were approved and satisfied Mrs. Kowski were not those of September of '98, but those revised in February of '99. We believe that's a mistake, and it has to be corrected. However, if that's not a mistake, and the plans we are talking about are those of September of '98, then I guess the resolution for those plans was that our appeal was upheld. So that would need clarification.
All right.
And we have one more thing.
Okay.
And that one more thing is that it is implied in the terms of the decision that there is an affidavit that has to be signed by both parties. We want to preserve that affidavit because the need for the two signatures is a guarantee that both parties' interests and rights are going to be addressed, mostly outside of this council, as it has been everybody's opinion. This is a private deal that will eventually be solved in court.
All right.
So we just want to make that explicit in the record.
Thank you. That completes the public hearing. The chair recognizes Councilwoman Misikowski.
Mr. President, members of the council, as was indicated, this has been in committee actually twice, and in deference to the appellants, there was a redesign of the house so that it did more correctly create a frontage feature on the street itself as opposed to the easement. The easement was an easement granted by the owners of the appellant's property to the owners of the applicant's property for driveway easement. The original design had a 5-car, actually 2 5-car garages, 1 3-car and 1 2-car on the easement. In an effort to respond to the appellants, we required that one of the garages be actually placed on the street. So now there will only be a 2-car garage on the easement, which this property granted to the other. The concerns were expressed about whether or not there would be building in the easement other than using it for an access. Building and Safety specifically said that there was not a retaining wall, and there will be a note on the file indicating that that is not the case either on the earlier plans or on the revised plans. Similarly, Building and Safety has noted that there could be no building of a retaining wall on the easement since the underlying easement is owned by the De Filippis, and that note will be in the file for Building and Safety as they review any plans brought forward by the applicant. So I believe that all of the concerns that the De Filippis have relative to affecting their easement inappropriately are tied down, and Building and Safety has confirmed that with my office, and we have shared that with the De Filippis. But in any case, I think that the hearing under the revised plan, and it clearly is the revised plan as submitted to committee in February, which was modified to reflect some of those concerns, is the plan of record and is the recommendation on which the conditions were changed by the Planning Committee's recommendation in an effort to recommend denying of the appeal and the granting of the permit and upholding the Planning Director's recommendations and report as modified by the committee action.
Mr. Bernstein, you want to speak? Okay, open the roll. Close the roll.
11 ayes.
That's approved. Next order, Mr. Clerk.
Item number 2, a request to be continued until August 11th.
All right, is there any objection to continuing that then?
August 11th, 1999.
All right, that'll be the order. Next item, Mr. Clerk.
Request to be continued for item number 10 by the city attorney until Friday.
All right, without objection, next order.
Item number 1, public hearing, Unified Charter Reform Proposal.
Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to address the council on item number 1? Anyone here on item number 1? If not, the public hearing will remain open till the next meeting. Next item, Mr. Clerk.
Items number 5 through 9 are ordinance second consideration.
All right, are there any specials 5 through 9, members of council? If not, open the roll, close the roll.
11 ayes.
Those are all second reading, Mr. Clerk?
Yes.
Those are approved. Next order.
Items number 12 through 15.
Members of council, are there any specials 12 through 15? Any specials 12 through 15? If not, open the roll, close the roll.
11 ayes.
Those are approved. Without objection, forthwith on 15. Next order, Mr. Clerk.
Item number 16, there's 2 reports on one file. The recommendations differ slightly.
All right, Ms. Chick, Chair, I have, is that difference, I don't see where transportation would have any objection to adding in consultation with fire and police, so we really should have one report. It seems to me that that's common sense.
And this is more of a process at this point than anything.
Saying that, are any discussion? Well, there are some people who wish to be heard from the public. This is not a required public hearing, but if there's no objection in the council, I'd have 3 people. 5-minute public hearing. You'll ask you to divide it among yourselves. Jerry Henberger, Alma Fitch, and Al Valdez. Would you each take 2 minutes? That'll be 6, actually, but come up and address the council. Welcome, Ms. Fitch. It'll be easier to use the other podium.
2 minutes or less, Mr. Chairman. I know the time is late, and very briefly, we're urging the council to go forward with the issuance of the RFP for the emergency vehicle signal override. This has been approved by 2 committees, both Transportation and Public Safety. There is in your file a letter of support from Chief Parks. The Fire Commission yesterday unanimously urged that the council go forward with the RFP. Very quickly, there is money available. There is probably some clarification needed on the report, which said there's no money available. That is true. There's no money in the city budget. However, this year in the what they call T21 federal budget, there is $936 million for safety items, which does not require a city match. That's 100% funding for this program. The This is important in terms of the city's risk management because of the size of payouts on accidents involving emergency vehicles and civilian cars. So there's some things that would be very useful in terms of life and safety for the city.
All right, thank you, Ms. Fitch. Mr. Valdez and Mr. Henberger, do you agree?
We agree.
Thank you.
Can we go on? Mr. President, members of the council, very quickly, 4 years ago, I came to the Fire Commission and asked them to take a look at a system called Opticom. And basically, because I was concerned, as members of the council and other people, on the number of accidents with emergency vehicles at signalized intersections. I asked the fire department to consider trying our system at no cost to the city, and they installed it at 10 intersections on Moore Park Boulevard. The system has been in place. It has operated flawlessly. It has reduced response times about 19%, and the other benefit, obviously, is the safety of the firefighters controlling the intersection, but more also, just as important, is the safety of the driving public in Los Angeles crossing those intersections in which the fire department has control of. I ask for your support of a technology that's off the shelf and ready to go. Thank you.
I'll keep this brief. Thank you for hearing us out. I want to speak briefly as to the benefits of the preemption system. In the event of a health emergency or a fire, we're all conditioned to dial 911. And what happens after we call 911 in the event of this emergency is that the operator calls the fire department rushes to their vehicles, they get in the vehicles, and as they're approaching the emergency, the inevitable happens, they get stuck in traffic. Every community, or most communities on the west side of Los Angeles currently use preemption. The city of Los Angeles does not. Every second counts in the event of an emergency, and we believe that this is something that the city of Los Angeles can do for its citizens. And if you've ever been a victim of an emergency and required the 911, you will know that every second counts. And we're asking your support for this, not only for the city and for the health and safety of the firemen, but also for the community at large. And we think that this is something that the community will appreciate, and we appreciate your support in this. Thank you.
Thank you. That completes the public hearing. Is there any, the chair recognizes Councilwoman Ms. Sikowski.
Mr. President, I just wanted to confirm that the issue is, when it did come up before, we did have Department of Transportation here, and their request and concern was that it be made clear that if we go forward with an RFP, it be a non-binding RFP, because there's concern about the various technologies, whether or not they're compatible with our own. This council just, I think last week, awarded a major bonus to a city employee for the development of a major transportation system that is in-house and that is our priority system. We are also working with MTA for a question of a bus override, and we need to make sure that we don't have independent technologies for which then we are obligated to one company or one technology that may be not compatible. So we need to make sure that in exploring what's going out there with an RFP, that it is information that the city can gain and then determine what is the best option, what is the most compatible option, and what does the best both for our emergency vehicles, our bus transportation, and our general overall automated traffic control system. So as long as that is verified that this is a non-binding RFP, I have no problem with it to explore the information, get that information and technology to the city, but then make our ultimate selections and choices at a later point.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Galanter.
Well, first of all, I want to say I agree. I concur with everything you just said. I think it is important that we learn everything we can, but we not commit too soon to one technology over another. I also want to point out that it is sad but true that if people would simply obey the existing traffic laws, a lot of this might not be so much of a problem. But we've all seen people who don't get out of the way of a fire engine. Having once ridden in an ambulance, which I'm happy to say I don't remember at all, I know how important it can be to the person in the ambulance and the person who cares about it for others to get out of the way, and I wish more people would remember that.
If people would just obey the law, half of our budget would go away immediately, and it could be spent on doing things that make life better for everybody who does obey the law. But that isn't the way it unfortunately works sometimes. I mean, okay, any further discussion? Close the roll.
11 ayes.
That's the law now, 65. That's approved. Next order.
Items number 20 through 25.
All right, are there any specials 20 through 25? Any specials 20 through 25? 22, what's the color going to be, Ms. Walters? Okay, open the roll, close the roll.
11 ayes.
Those are approved. Next order.
Now it's time for public comment.
18 and 19.
And February 24th.
Okay. I have 3 requests: David Thompson, Leonard Rose, and Larry Ross. Oh, excuse me, and Susan Nelson. I'm sorry. Is Mr. Thompson here? All right, Mr. Thompson not here. Leonard Rose? No, Leonard Rose, excuse me. It's different from Larry Ross. Larry Ross and Susan Nelson I have here.
Larry, oh, you go ahead.
My name is Larry Ross. Today, as I was sitting, waiting for this portion of the meeting to begin, at 11:52 a.m., I received the transmission, "He's going to be shot." I received many such transmissions throughout the day. And legally speaking, I guess it could be classified under intentional infliction of mental anguish or trauma. But I would like to go on record to say whenever anybody interferes with a legal right that a person has, automatically a cause of action has been created. I have come before you on many occasions telling of the abuses and violations I have been subjected, how my works, ideas, and projects has been ripped off and are still being ripped off by so-called reputable businesses in the counties and the city of Los Angeles, California. One of the abuses I have been subjected to is my denial for housing, which I have every right to have as any other individual who qualifies for such. I signed up a couple of years ago, and I received this while I was incarcerated at MDC. This came through the mail on May 11, 1998. It has this to say: "Dear Mr. Ross, this letter is to inform you that your client number has been changed. Your new client number is blank, 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 blank. Anytime you call, visit, or write this office, you will need to inform us what your client number is in an effort to assist you as efficiently as possible. Sincerely, Management Staff, Conventional Application Center. Address 5836 South Avalon Boulevard, Los Angeles, California." When I first signed up for housing, I went back within about a week's time, and I was told my application was lost or has been misplaced somewhere. So I filled out another one. Went back again. Then they wanted me to go to get information from another location that had a direct bearing on my physical well-being. Even though I told the individual that every time I had gone there to get information, the person that I needed it to speak to was never there, as if that person was always avoiding me. Anyhow, about after I got out of MDC on September the 9th, 1998, later that month or early part of October, I received a letter from the Housing Authority. And this is what I sent back, the letter in response to the letter that they sent out to me. It says this. It says, I first signed up for housing back in August of 1996, or 95 or 96. Now it is 1998, and I still have not received housing. The form received earlier this month is solely for the determination or classification for establishing the head of household status and the ability, according to my understanding or reading, to pay for the housing. The response to your advertisement back in 1995 was based on the contents of the advertisement that suggested immediate housing was available, and that the administration of such said housing would be done absence of favoritism or partiality or prejudice or undue inside or outside influences. But the sets of occurrences that took place immediately following the turning in of my application show it otherwise. Still, I am in need of and for housing, and the wait has done nothing to improve my chance according to the form received this month, since it shedded no light on the progression made, if any, in the selection process or the progression down the list. Why is it taking so long? Time will reveal, because what time will reveal, time shall tell. Or what time will tell, time shall reveal.
All right.
I'm finishing up. Furthermore, worthy of mention is the fact that the application turned it in stated that any irregularities or illegalities or wrongdoings or unfair management of or handling of my application with the motives or intentions to cause harm in violation of constitutional rights and or civil rights will result in accountability and or liability for the perpetrators, with the amount to be set or determined by the victim, with him having sole discretion in the determination of the amount to be paid by the perpetrators upon the establishment of or showing of any and or all irregularities or illegalities or wrongdoings or unfair management of or handling of my application with the motives and or intention to cause harm in violation of constitutional rights and or civil rights. I would appreciate any and all information you are able to provide to satisfy my curiosity. Thank you.
Thank you,
Larry
Mr. Ross. Susan Nelson.
Thank you, Joel. I'm here today representing Neighborhood Parks and Rivers Coalition, which is a citizens committee to save Elysian Park, and the Solano Canyon Association, in our objection to the fact that the Caltrans is going forward with a widening of the freeway, 110 freeway, which you're all familiar with, the one that cuts through Elysian Park that was put there in 1939 and destroyed Chavez Ravine and destroyed part of the Solano Canyon community. The proposal came forward in 1994. There were no public hearings. And today, they're going forward, and the cost of this has risen now, doubled from $6.9 million to $13 million. They're going over the Echo Park Reservoir, the Elysian Park Reservoir. Why I hope this is not bringing you down to earth, to real people, as the abstract poor that you've discussed in terms of taxes. The real people in Solano Canyon have to do with the school, which is right adjacent to the 110 freeway, and the Caltrans proposal will build huge walls that will reflect noise into the school, dirt and congestion, and of course the school board has okayed it, but look at the school board. They also okayed Belmont, and they've okayed Jefferson Middle School. So the real estate division of the school board has okayed this horrendous project. The Caltrans is also taking 104 trees out of Elysian Park. Now, the problem is, I've been calling Mike Hernandez's office now for a month, and there's no response, and Jackie's done nothing. So I'm speaking today. Tomorrow, MTA will be hearing this egregious proposal. We are suggesting, our coalition of people who are progressive and who care about this city, that it's time now to advance the idea of an interchange the Alameda bypass and Main Street bypass east of the 110, that this cannot be solved. It will not solve any traffic problems. It's a make-worth project. It's $13 million, and Mr. Hernandez and Ms. Goldberg need to be realized that they should represent our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nelson. That completes the public hearing. Next item, Mr. Clerk.
Motions for posting and referral.
All right, they'll be duly posted and referred.
Council members' request for excuse for attendance at council meetings. Councilmember Holden requests absence on Friday, February 19th. Meets policy for city business.
It's approved.
The desk is clear.
All right, are there any adjourning motions? Will the audience of the council please rise for adjourning motions? Shh. Councilwoman Miskowski.
I would like the council to adjourn in memory of Michael S. Hendry. He was a retired senior building inspector with Building and Safety, worked for the city for over 30 years, retired in 1982. He worked extensively in the San Fernando Valley, inspecting suburban housing tracts from the 1950s and 1960s. Had also served during World War II as an Army Air Corps pilot, and completed 30 years as a member of the Air Force Reserve. He is survived by two sons. Mr. Holden also asked me to adjourn on his behalf for two people. One is in memory of Van Hilburn, who had been a sergeant for the Department of Transportation, also serving for over 30 years with the DOT. He worked in the 10th District for the majority of his career with the city. And also Teresa A. Davis, a member of the 10th District. She was active in the community for over 50 years, having served as a nurse at Kaiser for over 31 years, 20 of those in the pediatrics division. She loved the children she helped, and for years afterwards was often visited. They would come to her home because of the help and the care that she had given them. She is survived by a niece whom she raised, Charlene Mosley.
Mr. Savornich.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the council. It gives me a great deal of sadness that we asked to adjourn in memory of Antitsa Rodin, a 33-year resident of San Pedro who passed away on February 13th at the age of 68. She was born on July 1st, 1930 on the island of Prvić Luka in Croatia. In 1965, she married Tony Rodin, the neighbor right across the street from my grandparents. She is survived by her husband, Tony, her daughter, Tina, sisters Mira Teslov of San Pedro, Branka Vidovic of Croatia, and Tomica Rodin of New Jersey. I remember Antica as a child and growing into young adulthood, visiting my grandmother, a very pleasant lady, and she recently underwent a very lengthy illness, and she was loved by her family and all who knew her.
Mr. Alatorre.
I'd like to adjourn the memory of Armando Martinez. Died just tragically 2 days ago from cancer. He's my cousin. So
Ms. Goldberg.
Yes, I'd like to ask that we adjourn in memory of Alma Pedrosa, who was born in Detroit, Michigan, and died this week here in Los Angeles at the age of 81. Alma's death of cardiac arrest followed a long bout with colon and lung cancer. She's the mother of Inez Pedrosa, formerly of KBC Television, and Cecilia Pedrosa, formerly of radio station KFWB. She was known as the official national anthem singer of Los Angeles, having sung the national anthem on the first opening day of the Los Angeles Dodgers and in LA Dodger Stadium, and in 1960 on the day John F. Kennedy was nominated to be the Democratic Party's presidential nominee at the Los Angeles Convention Center. She was named to Mexico Television's Televicentro, XEW, and XEQ Hall of Fame for her distinguished operatic career in that country. Ms. Pedrosa also had a distinguished list of media accomplishments, having served in 1960s as the Latin American editor of the Hearst Los Angeles Herald-Examiner, co-author of our Latin Amigos column, and co-host of several radio talk shows, along with her late associate, Monte Randall. In her recent years, she devoted her efforts to promoting various humanitarian and animal rights causes, worked in the family business Pedrosa Travel, established in 1967 in the Fairfax area. In addition to her two daughters that were previously mentioned, she's also survived by a son, Carlos Pedrosa, another daughter, Adelina Pedrosa Zaca of Kingston, Jamaica, and 4 beloved grandchildren.
I'd like to co-produce that. You know, everything is time in our society, but when you think back to when they were involved, they were really trailblazers.
Absolutely.
And it was at a different time and a different makeup of the population, and I think Alma and the two daughters that I knew were really trailblazers at the time. It doesn't seem as unique now because that's what trailblazers do, but they're really quite an amazing presence in the community. I'd like the council to adjourn in the memory of William Catron, a very active member of the Sunland community, and Geneva McBride, who is the mother of my mother's good friend and neighbor, Jack McBride. And I'll give the clerk the pertinent information. Call the roll, Mr. Clerk. Council's adjourned.